Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto is the son of Athena Olympus. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by INFERNOFOX01 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. The life of a demigod is dangerous. Some do not make it to their 20s. Some demigods don't make much of an impact, but some do impact history. One such demigod was named Naruto Namikaze, a son of Athena and the unfortunate outcast among his siblings. Athena frequented colleges and universities, searching for bright minds to have children with. The Greek goddess of knowledge didn't have her offspring in the conventional sense, as she swore an oath of chastity, but luckily there was a workaround. Athena mimicked how her birth went, having been conserved in her father's head and birthed when her father split his head with an axe. One such visit led her to the arms of Minato Namikaze, a professor of Asian history and warfare. Athena and Minato's relationship started professional, but time started transitioning from translating texts to spending time outside the workplace. Athena did not know Minato was clear-sighted. He could see the supernatural mist, including monsters and deities. Minato started to suspect strange phenomena around Athena, such as her ability to communicate with owls and serpents at the zoo. Wanting to confirm his theory, he took the direct approach and asked her, "Are you a goddess?" Knowing her mortal guise was up, she confessed and said yes. Information such as this didn't affect their relationship, and Naruto was soon born. Having familiarized himself with Greek lore, Minato knew the likelihood of seeing Athena again was slim. Now with a supernatural son in his hands, Minato began to prepare for the eventual monsters his son would attract. The college professor began to surround his house with magical charms and symbols, having learned from his grandfather and father. The beginning years for Naruto were normal as Minato's charms worked, as no monsters could get through. Still, at the age of 6, Naruto began first grade and had to leave the safety of his home. Fortune shined on Naruto as Hestia, the Greek goddess of family and the home, was teaching Naruto's class. Her responsibilities were less than her family's, so she had time. She also had a secondary purpose, looking for children her more active family members had in their free period. She spotted various monsters prowling around the school, looking at one of the children. She didn't know which kid they were, but after a few days, Hestia got her answer. The hellhound walked the perimeter until he saw a chance to attack his prey, a blonde demigod with spiky hair and blue eyes. Jules dripped with anticipation for his magical meal, closer and closer to the hound. Still, misfortune showed as Hestia blocked his path. Knowing his prey was lost to him, he retreated, but Hestia suspected the hellhound or another monster would show up again for Naruto. Having been notified that Minato was clear-sighted, Hestia told Naruto's father about the hellhound and other monsters that stalked his son during school. Minato made a dramatic decision that day by pulling his son out of school and teaching him from the safety of home. Months went by before misfortune struck the Uzumaki household again. Minato and Naruto were out grocery shopping when Minato noticed someone or something was following them at a distance. The predator took his chance when the father and child went to the parking lot to head home. The monster's actual form was a chimera with burning red eyes and an inky black mane billowing in the air. Minato told Naruto to run while he brought out a pocket knife. At first glance, it was an ordinary pocket with a red handle, but the mist surrounding it vanished, revealing a Jan without a guard with a large eye with a gold thread looped through it. Minato didn't know where the thread came from or its composition, but it had the same effect as the celestial bronze that made up the blade. The mist made it look like Minato was getting mugged, with bystanders calling the police for help, but the police didn't make it in time. During the battle, Minto was bitten by the chimera and died when the venom made it to his heart and destroyed the surrounding tissue. Naruto was placed in an orphanage, having no known relatives, until someone decided to adopt him. Days would pass until Naruto's godly blood began to manifest. Naruto was reading under the shade of a tree. The book entailed the various tales of Greek mythology, specifically the heroes and gods. The blonde orphan found the reason why the public school system censored most of the Greek mythology as it was full of the gods, mainly Zeus, descending from the heavens and impregnating women, willing or otherwise. The two gods he found the most interesting were Hades and Athena. Hades was portrayed as a bad guy because his domain was the underworld, which shares his name, but he only had 2 or 3 tales involving him, and as far as Naruto could tell, Hades stayed faithful to his wife, Persephone, and stirred a demigod of his own. Naruto saw Athena as the more tactical one in the war when compared to her brother, Ares. The sun functioned as Naruto's light as he read his book when a weird feeling came to him. He thought it was just some bark scratching his back, and when Naruto's hand contacted the tree, its properties changed as the tree began to flatten and wave in the wind. "What the?" shouted Naruto before the tree returned to its original state. "What just happened?" A month went by with Naruto trying to figure out what happened. He tested the ability in secret but still needed an answer. He stopped when the head of the orphanage called his name over the intercom. When he arrived, he saw an Asian couple finishing up some paperwork with the head of the orphanage. "Good news, Naruto, this nice family decided they wanted you to be a part of their family," said the head of the orphanage with a kind tone. "I know it will be hard to say goodbye to us, but I know you will have a wonderful life with them." On the car ride to his new home, Naruto began to get a pit in his stomach, but he brushed it off as nerves got the best of him. The new family made it to their home and escorted Naruto near the back. They opened the door and harshly pushed him in. "The eldest will tell you what your job is," said the father in a harsh and emotionless tone. "Do it well, and you won't be disposed of." Naruto later found out he was the latest victim to the couple. They ran a counterfeit ring and were all on the lookout, so nimble hands, and should the children not meet expectations, they disappeared and would later be replaced. The hidden demigod endured hot and harsh conditions, making fake shoes and purses for his masters while having to fight for food and a place to sleep in the tiny room he called home. Naruto's patience paid off. His parents came back to the house blackout drunk and passed out. Using his new skills, he flattened his body and slipped past the door. Before he escaped, he used a phone to call the police to prevent anyone else from suffering the same fate. Luck smiled upon Naruto as he escaped into the surrounding forest before the lights of cop cars rained on his prison. He ran further into the forest and bumped into a girl around his age, followed by two older children with weapons in hand. He would later be thankful for this twist of fate in his story. Chapter 2. It's been 2 weeks since Naruto joined Thalia, Luke and Annabeth, and to say things were interesting was an understatement. Every few miles they encountered a monster or two, but Thalia and Luke mostly took care of them. When Naruto showed them his ability by flattening a tree and making the ground flutter, it was after that demonstration that both Luke and Thalia convinced Naruto to incorporate the ground rippling aspect of his powers for fighting. They reasoned that by making the ground unstable, the monsters would have a harder time attacking them. This tactic proved successful on the next monster, a cyclop. As the cyclops was wobbling, Thalia and Luke swooped in and hit it in the chest. The beast vanished in a shower of golden dust and left behind a tanned hide. The group collected their prize and continued on their quest. It was almost a month when the pressure increased as instead of one monster it was a pack of hellhounds that attacked them, and it was only thanks to Thalia's quick thinking that saved them from being eaten. She told Naruto to flatten and fold several trees into an interlocking pattern, but that will only hold for so long as it is still wood. That's the current situation that forced Naruto and Annabeth to hug each other in fright, with Luke and Thalia trying to defend them. "They're getting closer," said Naruto in a frightened tone. "I know," said Thalia as she readied her spear, "just stay behind me while Luke and I handle the hellhounds." The hounds were a half an inch from destroying the barrier when the unbelievable happened. Silver arrows rained from the sky and pierced the hide of the hellhounds. They were reduced to golden dust after the dust was cleared, that the group of four received a clearer sight of what saved them. A group of females wearing parkas made out of silver fibers with wooden bows drawn and ready to fire. The girls didn't see any more danger, but didn't relax as danger could come around the corner. The hunters then began to inspect the demigods for any injuries. It turns out that the groups of girls that saved them were the hunters of Artemis, or her handmaidens, and they heard the pack of hellhounds nearby and decided to investigate further. After eliminating the threat and inviting the group to recuperate at their camp, it was more of an invitation for the girls than the boys. Annabeth and Thalia were received nicely, while Luke and Naruto were looked at with distaste. Naruto wasn't paying attention to them as his eyes was drawn toward something else, looking at their bowstrings. He didn't know why, but the way they shined in the moonlight and the elasticity they displayed interested him. Naruto placed his hands on the log he was sitting on, and for once it didn't become flat but converted into strings. This startled both his group and the hunters, resulting in Naruto having multiple arrows pointed at him. "What have you done, male?" asked on the hunters in a stern tone. "Trust me, this is new to me," said Naruto. "It usually flattens and becomes as light as a flag." "We should bring him to Lady Artemis," said a hunter, "she would know what to do." This comment was met with an argument between Thalia and the hunters until a woman of 5'9" wearing the same clothing as the younger hunters. She had brown hair that was styled in a topknot and her eyes were sharp like those of a hawk. Artemis excited the largest tent and walked toward the commotion. Her name was Artemis, the goddess of the hunt and the moon. "What is going on here?" said a demanding Artemis. "Mistress, we were just securing a possible threat to the camp," replied one of the hunters. "What threat?" asked Artemis. "That would be me," said Naruto as he was getting back up. "I accidentally turned one of your logs into a bundle of string." Interesting, thought Artemis. He reminds me of Athena, but none of her other children displayed this ability. "Child, do you know who your godly parent is?" asked Artemis. "No. All I know is that it was my mother," replied Naruto. "I see," said Artemis. "Zo, invite the girls to my tent as soon as possible." "Yes, ma'am," replied the Zo. The morning after was tense as the hunters glared at the group as they left and Thalia wasn't helping with the situation. Apparently, Annabeth and Thalia were offered the opportunity to join the hunters but declined. The hunters weren't happy and Thalia electrocuting the hunter made things worse. Naruto really wasn't paying attention because he became fascinated with his new ability that he discovered last night. He began to think about the possibilities for his new power. He could now tie the opponent up or even trap them in a net. He discussed this with Luke and he agreed and also asked if he could use the thread to sew materials together. This piqued Naruto's interest, and while they walk he would try to manipulate the string to pass through some of the spared cloth he had. He was the one that took care of all the rips and tears in their clothes. It was difficult at first as the string was blunt and took a lot of energy to penetrate the fabric. It takes a week of trial and error, but he did make a small breakthrough. It was a lot easier to use a needle to penetrate the cloth. He could do it without the needle, but it tired him significantly. He put his new sewing to use by making armor for Thalia and Luke since they did most of the fighting. He flattened of the larger rocks they come across, flattened them and then sewed them to fit both Thalia and Luke's bodies. They later discovered that the weight disappeared and they could keep the armor on for hours. The new armor was even tested and could take hits that would typically break bones and they only suffer mild bruising. This was Naruto's first job as he provided the armor and shields for Thalia and Luke to fight with. This worked out significantly as they didn't need to spend so much on medical supplies and the materials Naruto needed could be found locally. Things became routine until they encountered a weird creature. It looked like a boy, but from the waist down he was a goat, being attacked by a cyclops. They did what any kid would have done. Annabeth and Naruto hide behind Thalia while Luke takes care of the monster. It was over quick as Luke had previous experience dealing with Cyclops. They found out that his name is Grover and he was Satyr assigned to guide them to Camp Half-Blood, which took off a considerable amount of stress off them as they were primarily lost. They shortly found out that Grover was new at recruiting and guiding demigods as they apparently missed a few turns and had to turn around. The group of 4 have been traveling with Grover for about a week and so far nothing has happened as Grover was able to smell the monsters and navigate around them, not all of them but some. It wasn't really complicated to incorporate Grover into their group as all he did was guide them and the prepared food they had could only feed 4 people, but that was quickly solved as they saw Grover eating grass. They were near the end of their journey when the worst happened. Hades heard news of Zeus's newest spawn and sent a variety of monster to eliminate her and the group she was in. Hades' attackers consisted of several hellhounds, a minotaur and a cyclops or 2. The group of monsters managed to find their target in a matter of days and chased them towards Camp Half-Blood. Thalia told Annabeth and Naruto to run to safety while she and Luke fend off the monsters. Annabeth managed to cross the border, but Naruto tripped and twisted his ankle. Some of the hellhounds managed to bypass the 2 fighters and spot the wounded demigod. Naruto panicked as the demonic canine came closer. The unexpected happened. The forest and the ground surrounding Naruto converted into string and wrapped around the hellhounds, reducing them into golden powder. Noticing that he out of danger, Naruto got back on his feet and run the camp as fast as he could. Naruto looked back and saw that the last moments of Thalia's existence. One of the Cyclops managed to grab Thalia's legs and swing her towards the nearby trees. As she lay dying, her father decided to give her one last mercy by transforming her into a tree. Zeus also made his daughter the pinnacle of the camp's defense. This broke Naruto mentally as another person that was close to him died and he could do nothing about it. He situated himself in Hermes' cabin, never socializing and just coming out for meals. This went on for about a week until Annabeth slapped him, literally, out of it and lectured him for about 10 minutes about how Thalia would want them to enjoy the camp and not wallowing in self-pity. It was on that day 2 things happened. Naruto got out of his funk and Annabeth was claimed by Athena. Luke and Naruto helped her move her stuff to Athena's cabin with her new brothers and sisters. Naruto was happy that Annabeth finally got the family she wanted and now that he thought about it, the more it made sense as she was into architecture and managed to retain the knowledge she read about. At the same time, Naruto was jealous of Annabeth. The only family he was slowly being driven apart. As the months went by and Naruto began to adjust to the camp and even his campmates, although he quickly found the need to sew his possessions to the roof of the cabin. Luke's father was Hermes, the god of messengers and patron of roads, and since he was already in the Hermes cabin, he didn't need to move. This comforted Naruto as his big brother wasn't leaving. The only one not claimed was Naruto, and it was hard to deduce who his godly could be. To their knowledge, no one demonstrated the set of powers Naruto had. The closest would be Athena, but her children retained some of her intelligence and photographic memory. Another and weirder possibility would be Hephaestus, as they are gods and really don't have a defined gender and could masquerade as male or female. He is the god responsible for the weapons the gods use, but his problem laid in the process. Hephaestus's children used the materials in their raw state, while Naruto flattened and converted the materials into strings. It caused Chiron, the trainer of heroes, and the Athena cabin to have massive migraines for several days, and it only made it harder because Naruto didn't fear spiders, the fear that all of Athena's children had. They discovered this fact when they found Naruto making spider webs from the strings he could produce with his hands and even make a black widow spider his pet. This fact both spooked and fascinated Athena's children. The answer came in December. Naruto was currently doing the hobby that he liked and had a good grasp on, knitting. He found a book on it in the Athena cabin, he paid tribute to Athena beforehand and became fascinated with the intricate pattern and history behind it. He acquired a pair of knitting needles at the camp store and for some reason, the needles just sat there gathering dust. He had a basic understanding of it but lacked structure. He started out with redoing the basic shapes and just move on from there. It took about an hour for Naruto to begin with the intricate designs and the mark above Naruto's head that showed astonished the whole camp. They finally got their answer, and all it did was confuse most of them. How could Naruto be a son of Athena when he didn't have any of the standard behavior patterns? He doesn't fear spiders, he wasn't interested in architecture, and his interests were more in common with Hephaestus's. Things were tense during the moving process, as in the eyes of some he didn't deserve to be the child of Athena and should be placed in Hephaestus's cabin or even Aphrodite's. The girls insisted after see his sewing technique, but Chiron wouldn't hear of it. The selection for his bed was easy as Athena placed an old-fashioned loom near one of the corner beds and had several spools of thread sitting on the comforter. Naruto was truly happy as he gained his little sister, Annabeth, back and finding out that the two of them was related. This was also good news for Luke as Naruto's depressive atmosphere was really bringing down his mood. It's been a month since Naruto was claimed and unfortunately little has improved. Some of his siblings still haven't accepted him as their brother. He could tell by the way they isolate him from the group. Some of his siblings might exclude him, but he has acceptation from the rest of the camp. The daughters of Aphrodite love him because he makes them nice clothing and even repairs their other clothes for free. That seems to happen a lot. The children of Hephaestus liked him because he was like them, master crafter, and like their father, he was an outcast. Things got really interesting when he received an order from the gods. This was a rare event since the gods only have so much time to spare, but Aphrodite heard her daughters talk about the clothes they received from the new son of Athena and decided to put Naruto to the test and sent him a simple dress order, a dark purple evening gown with gold vine embroidery on the collar, cuffs and at the edge of the dress with a lighter blouse that stopped precisely at 161.8 centimeters and had slightly flared cuffs. Aphrodite also wanted this dress in a week. This was Naruto's hardest test as he stitched and sewed for 5 days straight to get the exact measurements right and not make a single mistake when making something for the Olympians. It must be perfect or else. When he was finally done, he paid Hermes to deliver Aphrodite order and Naruto waited for 2 days to see if he lived or died, as only the best for Aphrodite and her children. Luckily she was happy and even spread the news about him to the other goddess on Olympus, or in the case of Persephone below. He was busy for the first few months working on gowns and other assorted female clothing, but it was thanks to Hermes that he made an acceptable contract for business so he can enjoy life and make some money on the side. It was also thanks to this agreement that Naruto had the opportunity to see the world, as some of the orders took place in where Hermes couldn't get to, such as the underworld. Naruto had to go there once a month as Persephone especially liked his designs. Naruto was working on his monthly assignment for Persephone, but the weather outside was throwing off some of the stitches. He knew for a fact that Zeus wasn't angry at him. Apparently, he had to know where all of Hera's clothes were coming from, and having clothes made from a mere demigod wasn't good enough. He changed his tune when Naruto offered to make some of his suits for free. Anyway, Naruto was undoing and correcting the stitching when he heard a sound that wasn't naturally in the wild. He looked out his window and saw that Chiron and his sister, Annabeth, were walking towards the camp's border, seemingly waiting for something. They waited for about a minute when they began to drag Grover and an unconscious boy to the big house, drying them off and patching them up. "Looks like we have another camper," said Naruto. "It's odd that they would come in this weather." June 7. When Naruto looked out the window, he saw that the storm had passed and the newbie was talking to Chiron and Mr. D. This didn't interest him as it happened all the time, but when Naruto looked closer, he saw Mr. D started to change color. The newbie must have done something to anger the god of madness. Dionysus seemed to have left, with the newbie unharmed, and Chiron began to exit his wheelchair to reveal his horse body. Naruto decided to introduce himself to the new camper and try, and possibly a new customer. He left his workhouse and began to walk towards the new camper, but was interrupted by the daughters of Aphrodite. He could distinguish what they were asking as they all talked at once. "Ladies, please, if there is something you need from me, please fill out the purchase form and hand it to me," said Naruto, trying to resolve the situation. When Naruto resumed his journey, he was greeted by the sight of Claris dragging the new camper toward the restrooms. Well, it looks like he'll need a new set of clothes, said Naruto. Why must Claris do this? He returned to his workshop and grabbed a spare shirt and pants for the new camper. Looking like a medium, he walked towards the female restrooms. When he got there, he was greeted by Claris, her two cronies, and Annabeth, who were soaking wet and smelling of sewage. What in Olympus happened here? Asked Naruto. It seems that the bathrooms weren't up to Percy's standards, answered Annabeth. Really, usually, the children of Aphrodite complain about the bathrooms, said Naruto. These were initially meant for Percy, but seeing that he is bone dry, I believe you can find use for them. Thanks, said Annabeth. You must be Percy, the boy from last night, said Naruto as he turned toward Percy. Yeah, that's me, said Percy, but who are you? My name is Naruto Uzumaki, he said, introducing himself. I'm part of Cabin 6. Oh. You must be Annabeth's brother, said Percy. Yes, one of many, said Naruto, and something tells me Annabeth would want you on her team for tonight's game. After Annabeth changed into some dry clothes, the horn for lunch resonated throughout the camp. Well, it looks like lunch is ready, said Naruto. Good luck trying to get a seat at Hermes' table. Lunch wasn't that interesting to Naruto. He usually eats in his workshop, not by choice, but sometimes the orders pile up. Today's menu included smoked brisket with roasted red potatoes, fresh greens, and potato soup. So, Annabeth, any new strategies for tonight? Asked Naruto. Unfortunately, no. Ever since you were banned from participating in Capture the Flag, our planned success rates have decreased by 60%, answered Annabeth. I still say they're being dramatic, so some of the campers were in cocoons. It's a big deal, said Naruto, none of them were hurt. I don't believe that was the issue, said Annabeth. I believe they banned you because you turned some of the forest into string and no one could get past you. I still think they were being dramatic, said Naruto. It doesn't matter anyway, as I have to finish Persephone's dress. That's good, but how are you getting our parents to pay for your services? Asked Annabeth. Only the goddess and some of the gods pay me, while the others tell me that I should be honored for making their clothes. Said Naruto, that in pity, mostly pity. I think they also try and bribe me to only make clothes for them. What makes you think that? Asked Annabeth as she finished her dinner. The fact that I get envelopes full of money from the Dove and Flower, replied Naruto in a dull tone. That sounds about right, said Annabeth, at least you contribute to the camp. I try and play my part, said Naruto. June 8. When Naruto woke up, he began his daily ritual of feeding his pet owl, Fluffy, and pet spider, Stilio. The owl was expected as it's his mother's sacred animal, but the spider was unexpected and needs further explanation. Patches is a black widow who appeared in his workshop a few weeks ago, but he couldn't get rid of it. When his siblings discovered his new pet, they were less than ecstatic about it. This decreased his popularity with his brothers and sister, but he grew used to it after dealing with them for a few years. Okay, let's see what today's orders entail, said Naruto as he grabbed a pile of paper, armor, dress, repairing a skirt. It only makes sense as tonight's Capture the Flag. Naruto began these orders by visiting Hephaestus's cabin to find spare metal sheets. While he was looking, he started to remember how he had created the new armor. He was in his second year and was dealing with one enemy that all demigods go through. Boredom. His business wasn't as popular yet and he had already handled the orders sent to him. After thinking about it for an hour or two, he decided to train in his new abilities with the children of Hephaestus. They offered their stockpile to him because it was mostly scrap. As he was walking, he noticed how the traditional armor looked clunky and uncomfortable, so his mind went to the possibility of weaving the metal thread he created into a shirt or pants. The earlier prototypes failed as they were too bulky or offered little protection. He went through multiple designs, but got a breakthrough when he weaved together the thicker pieces of metal with the thinner pieces by having the thicker pieces act as the main shield while the thinner pieces cover the little gaps, offering further protection. When he went and told Chiron about his new armor, he looked interested but needed further proof that it actually worked. Chiron arranged for the new armor to be demonstrated and see if it worked. His test consisted of the children of Ares and Apollo attacking a mannequin with the new armor on it. The Ares children basted and battered the new armor, but the mannequin was undamaged on closer inspection and the armor was still functional. Apollo's children delivered long-range assault and none of their arrows stuck. They just bounced off. Chiron was impressed with the armor and integrated it into the system. The reaction to the new armor was better than he expected and Naruto's new armor became a camp favorite. When he reached his destination, Hephaestus's cabin, he saw that the gate was unlocked and his usual basket was waiting for him. How nice of them, said Naruto as he walked closer to the junkyard. Naruto took about an hour to gather all the materials for the armor that had been ordered and began the walk back to his shop. On the way, he saw that his cabin had sword practice today, along with Hermes' cabin. He stopped and observed how his siblings were doing and saw that Percy was getting his butt whooped but Luke, one of the best swordsmen in the camp. "Hey, Naruto," said Luke as he spotted him. "Come over here and show this newbie what real swordsmanship looks like." "That's alright. I have a hectic schedule and it looks like you have everything covered," replied Naruto. "Come on, we hardly see you fight and your fighting style helps instill the principle of keeping up a guard," said Luke. "I still need to get these orders done. Aphrodite's daughters are mauling the alternative," said Naruto, "and you know how sharp their nails are." "Yeah, I know, but you are still responsible for teaching the younger campers how to fight," said Luke. I know, but I have other responsibilities to this camp, such as getting the money to support this camp," replied Naruto. "A few minutes out of your schedule would change anything, and besides, a good thrashing keeps the younger one from getting a big head," said Luke. "You're right, but only a few minutes," said Naruto as he set his supplies down and entered the fighting arena to see Percy Jackson as his opponent. "My first opponent is Percy," said Naruto, taking a metal square out of his pocket. "Perfect. Aren't you going to get a sword?" asked Percy. "Percy, this will be your first lesson concerning me, and anything on me could be a weapon," Naruto asked as the metal square unfolded and revealed a 36-inch long rapier. "How did you do that?" asked a shocked Percy. "You see, Percy, unlike normal mortals, we demigods have special abilities related to our godly parent," said Naruto. "Mine abilities are mostly related to sewing and crafting." "Oh well," said Percy, but was interrupted by Naruto. "The second lesson is never to let your guard down around your opponent," said Naruto as he continued his thrusts. What Percy didn't see was that Naruto's pattern wasn't meant to harm Percy, but to disarm him. "Naruto, stop playing with him," said Luke. "He's just a beginner, and you know I don't fight seriously against the campers who aren't ready for it," replied Naruto, keeping his eyes on Percy. "Then just give him an administration," said Luke. "Show him why you're one of our best." "Fine. I'll show you a sample if it will get you to be quiet and then I can get back to work," said Naruto as he backpedaled from Percy. Once Naruto was far enough, his stance changed from that of classic fencing to that of a stance that was meant to pierce. This confused Percy as he never encountered something like this. "Be warned, Percy Jackson, as this technique was meant to pierce through multiple monsters at once," said Naruto as he aligned his shot, Athena volley, straight shot. What Percy saw could only be described as a beam of light shooting out of Naruto's hilt, passing over his shoulder and into the tree behind him. This only proved to Percy just how weak he was to the other campers. Naruto's sword returned to normal. Here he folded it and put it back into his pocket. Naruto then retrieved his basket and resumed the walk back to his workshop. "And that is why Chiron doesn't let Naruto fight the younger camper," said Luke as he entered the arena to resume the sword lessons. "That is also why Naruto teaches the older campers how to fight multiple opponents simultaneously." Night has fallen and the various campers were excited for tonight's game, for this was the night for the blue team to finally capture the flag. Naruto managed to finish all his orders and also deliver them to their respective buyers. "So any solid strategies against Ares' team?" asked Naruto. "A partial one, but the chances of it working are 40%, replied Annabeth. "Well, at least there's a chance for succession," said Naruto, "no matter how slim it is." "You're just being positive because Ares' children won't pound you into paste," said Annabeth. "Actually Ares himself can't harm me," said Naruto. "Aphrodite found out that Claris was giving me a hard time and thereby delaying her dress." "Why was Claris giving you a hard time?" asked Annabeth. "I needed her to model a dress for me," said Naruto. "Aphrodite wanted the dress to have those 3 sizes." "But she can shapeshift," pointed out Annabeth. "I know that, but I think she just wanted to see one of the toughest girls in the camp in an elegant dress," said Naruto. "To be honest, Claris looked pretty cute." "I never thought I hear those 2 words in the same sentence," said Annabeth. "Well, what can I tell you? I can see what people look good in," said Naruto. But that the conversation ended as everyone's armor replaced their dishes and the team flags were paraded around the mess hall. The armor was arranged in neat folded piles, except Percy's, as he had the older model of armor in front of him. This surprised Percy as everyone else's was smooth and thin while his was thick and bulky. For some odd reason it was now a camp tradition for all the new campers to fight their first capture the flag game in the old armor. "Looks like dinner is over," said Naruto as he looked over his medicine bag. Naruto's recruitment into the medical field happened 2 years ago while he was watching Adam and Alton, 2 of Apollo's children, sparring. Unknown to them was Apollo was also watching and hoped to see if any of his kids will become the future Antonio Banderas, a past child of Apollo. Sadly for Apollo this wasn't the day, but instead he had a future medic in Naruto. One of the swordsmen overstepped his thrust and sliced the arm of his opponent, forming a gash. Naruto told the Adam that Alton was hurt and to retrieve Chiron. Naruto looked at the wound and saw that if it wasn't taken care of soon Alton might go into shock, so he followed his instincts and hovered my hand over the wound. Something unexpected happened as the string that Naruto naturally produced started to descend onto the wound and sew the wound close. Naruto was surprised as he only thought his abilities could only be applied to cloth making, not medicine. Apollo was also surprised but saw what his half-sister's kid could become. After Alton was taken care of and night has fallen, Apollo decided to make his appearance through Morpheus's realm. Naruto Uzumaki, you have shown me your gift and I have decided to bestow upon you the blessing of healing. You can now temporarily repair any exterior wounds you can see," said Apollo. "What?" asked Naruto as this was a side of Apollo he's never really seen. "I saw what you did earlier and I decided to give the gift to temporarily heal any wounds you can see on the body," explained Apollo. "Oh," said Naruto. As Apollo pulled the sun across the sky, Naruto told Chiron about his dream and his new blessing. This surprised Chiron as the gods rarely bestow blessing, but the news that his son Athena now having the gift of healing was the most surprising. When the camp learned of this it had a positive and negative. The number of wounded campers from fighting reduced, but the Areses became rowdier once they learned that they could fight longer than normal, as both their opponent and themselves could be repaired and keep going. The torches were lit and the campers were discussing battle plans, the blue team more than the red team. Mr. D, Chiron and Naruto were sitting in the bleachers waiting for the game to begin, and as usual, the Aphrodite and Demeter cabins were sitting on the ground, deciding not to play. This worked out for both parties as Naruto didn't need to heal that many people and the daughter of Aphrodite won't get dirty. "So how do you think we'll win?" asked Naruto, and I already know your answer. "Well, the blue team might have a chance with Percy on their team," answered Chiron. "Or they might have doomed themselves further," said Naruto as he retrieved his knitting to pass the time. "Do you really think that little of your cabin?" said Chiron. "No, Percy is just an unknown factor," said Naruto, "until he shows any notable skill he is only a nuisance." "How very Athena of you," said Mr. D. "Thank you," said Naruto, "I'm sure my mother would approve of that thinking." While this was going on Annabeth was telling her team their position, but one camper wasn't paying attention, Percy. He was mainly feeling afraid because this was his first combat situation and confusion as he was the only one in bulky armor. "Now any questions?" asked Annabeth. "Why do I have the bulky armor?" asked Percy. "Percy, it is camp tradition for the new campers to wear the bulky armor in their first game of Capture the Flag," answered Annabeth. "Any other questions?" "Why isn't Naruto playing?" asked Percy. "Naruto was banned a couple of years ago because he unbalanced the teams," said Annabeth. "Any other questions?" No one replied, signaling her that everyone understood. "Good, then everyone in battle position," said Annabeth. The game was in its 5th minutes and it didn't look like Athena was going to win. "It seems the cycle is going to continue," said Naruto as he finished the first 4 feet of his Afghan. "It does look that way," replied Mr. D. "You never know. Miracles can happen," said Chiron. "You're just saying that because you're always looking on the bright side of things," said Naruto. "Well, you should too," replied Chiron. "I mean you're only 12, but you're acting like you've been around for much longer. You try making cloths with the expectation of them being perfect or suffer a punishment worse than death," said Naruto. "Well, when you put it like that your behavior is explained," said Chiron. "It's also why I can get along with Mr. D so well," said Naruto. "We both know suffering." Before their conversation could progress further the feeling of the dread started to permeate from the forest. "I blame you, Chiron," said Naruto as ran towards the disturbance. The forest had a tense atmosphere as the new camper, Percy Jackson, was staring at a hellhound and honestly didn't have a clue on what to do. He was positioned to guard the border of the blue team, which changed when Clarice and her cronies came and started to batter him. His helmet and shield were bashed away and Percy was forced near the steam. "The flag is that way," said Percy as he pointed toward the west. "You see, we don't care, I'm here for revenge," said Clarice. "You humiliated me and I can't let that stand." That's when things started to change. After Percy fell in the stream he felt newfound strength and started to become more focused. As Clarice's goons were closing in Percy began to notice their weak points and how to defeat them. Percy began to bob and weave through them, attacking as he went until he reached Clarice. This both confused and aggravated her as this newbie was dominating her brothers and sisters, children of war, in combat. Before Clarice could fight she heard a riot behind her and was surprised by Annabeth carrying the red team's flag. "The trick, it was a trick," yelled Clarice as she tried to stop Luke, but her attempt was in vain as he managed to pass over the borderline, winning the game. We won," yelled Luke as the rest of the blue team joined in. "Job well done, Percy," said Annabeth as she appeared from behind a tree. "Where were you, was I just bait?" yelled Percy as he fell on his butt. "Partially," said Annabeth. "Clarice was our biggest obstacle for the flag and with her being angry at you for the bathroom incident, she would come after you." Percy was about to reply, but a sudden feeling of dread overwhelmed both him and Annabeth. Percy reached for his sword, but discovered that his sword was further than expected. He went for a drive the sword, but the adrenaline rush ran out and his reaction time was slower, presenting the perfect opportunity for the hellhound to pounce. As it was descending towards Percy, it suddenly stopped in midair, confusing both the hound and Percy. "You really need to work on your battle instinct," said Naruto. When Percy turned to address Naruto, he saw Naruto walking in midair as if the air was solid. "Well, are you going to sit there or are you going to slay the beast?" said Naruto. Realizing what the situation, he retrieved his sword and thrust the tip into the hellhound, turning it into golden dust. "Good job, Percy, but you seriously need to improve your fighting skills," said Naruto as he jumped down. Chiron shortly came and saw the aftermath along with the injured Percy. "What happened here?" asked Chiron. "It was Percy, he summoned a hellhound and slayed it to look like a hero," said Claris as she tried to put Percy in a bad light. "No, Percy was recovering from the game and the hellhound just appeared almost like he was being targeted." While all this was going on, Naruto approached Percy, looked for any injuries. "How did you do that?" asked Percy. "Do what?" said Naruto as he continued. "Walk in the air," said Percy. "That is my secret," said Naruto. Naruto was almost finished when something unexpected happened. A light appeared over Percy's head. "This is bad, very very bad," thought Naruto as he saw the symbol. "Zeus is going to throw a fit." "All hail Percy, son of Poseidon, the lord of the sea and the earth shaker," said Chiron as her saw the symbol, but also fearing for the outcome. The news of Percy's father hit the camp hard as he now had the potential to become one of the most powerful and the most influential. His popularity changed now as this proved he was related to one of the most important gods. This also presented a giant problem as the deal made between the big three was now void. Zeus was bound to overreact to this news, thinking Poseidon was now planning to overthrow him and take his throne. Percy was now moving into his new home as Chiron, Mr. D, Naruto and Annabeth were talking about this new development. "This changes everything," said Chiron, "we now have a person that can fulfill the prophecy." "It's unexpected, yes, but we still have time," said Naruto. "The prophecy states that the chosen one will have to decide the fate of Olympus. We can train him for the obstacles he may face. The only downside is the delay we now have. With Poseidon now claiming him as his son, Zeus will demand him to retrieve his bolt. Olympus will need me now," said MRD, "someone will need to keep the balance." "You mean Hestia, right?" said Annabeth. "Yes, I'll mostly just there to create a unanimous vote," replied Mr. D, "see ya." June 9th. It only took one day to learn that being an only child is all it cracked up to be. Even though Percy can now choose his cabin's activities at the end of the day, he has no one to share it with. Percy couldn't even enjoy his meals as only the children with the same godly parent can sit together. Both Naruto and Annabeth saw this and felt bad as they both know what loneliness felt like. "Should we do something?" asked Annabeth. "That's honesty up to you," said Naruto. "Now that we know that Percy is the son of the sea, the likelihood of mother letting us be friends with him are shot. You know that mother expects us to hate all things sea related." "You're still angry at what happened at the lake," said Annabeth, "aren't you?" "He let that fish smack me," said Naruto, "I just know it." They would have continued if not for the thunder constantly hounding the camp. "Looks like the big man is getting impatient," said Naruto. "The quest is coming. It's only a matter of time," said Annabeth. "This was what you were expecting," said Naruto. "All those years waiting paid off. Mr. D should be back with word from the council, the need for a quest would be the only logical solution." "I agree," said Annabeth. "You're going on the quest even if Percy doesn't pick you, won't you?" said Naruto. "What, no, I wouldn't do such a thing," said Annabeth, "but not very conveniently." "Yes, Yuri," said Naruto. When breakfast was over, Naruto went back to his workshop to begin his large but manageable workload. "Aphrodite's daughters should really learn how to take better care of their cloths," said Naruto as he looked through the orders. "Hoot," said Fluffy, "hoot, hoot, hoot." "That may be true, but they know I can predict the future of fashion," replied Naruto. "Hoot," said Fluffy. "The money is good, I'll admit that," said Naruto once he got to his workbench. "Summer is coming, my personal Tartarus." It was in the late afternoon when Naruto was done with his workload for today and he was looking forward to a well-deserved lunch. He was sitting at his table when he noticed that Chiron and Mr. D were talking to Percy about something, probably telling him about his quest. He finished his meal and walked towards Chiron and Mr. D to tell them that he was probably going to join the upcoming quest. "Greetings, Mr. D, how was your trip to Olympus?" asked Naruto. "Could have gone better," said Mr. D, "the tension between Zeus and Poseidon has increased." "This is bad," said Chiron, "it's only a matter of time before Olympus is torn apart." "You're right, but you do have to remember that Hestia, Hera and Demeter can calm the two down." "Yes, but they can only distract them for so long," said Chiron. "Then I guess Percy will have to start the quest as soon as possible," said Naruto. I couldn't agree more, said Chiron. The look on Percy's face coming out of the attic spoke of terror. The reason for this was the prophecy that was given. You shall go west and face the god who has turned. You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned. You shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend. And you shall fail to save what matters most in the end. The ending was what worried Percy the most, failing to save his mother. That was the whole reason why he took the stupid quest in the first place, but it seems that would be possible now. Something seems to be troubling you, said Chiron. Was it the prophecy you were given? Yes, said Percy, I'll retrieve the bolt safely, but it seems that I'll also be betrayed in the end. It may seem bleak, but you have to remember that some of the lines have double meanings. Said Chiron. Did the prophecy say anything else? Just that I'll meet the god that turned, said Percy. Well, think, Percy, which god do you think would profit the most if the gods go to war? Said Chiron. Hades. Said Percy, but the earth shook as he finished saying that. Percy, remember that names have power, said Chiron. Now, you may choose 2 campers to accompany you on your quest. Grover for sure, said Percy, but the second person is. Me, said no one. Ah! Screamed Percy. Yes, Percy, no need to scream, said Annabeth as she appeared between Percy and Chiron. How did you do that? Said Percy. She has a magic baseball cap that lets her turn invisible, said Naruto as he walked towards the group. She usually uses it to gather information and make tactical retreats, but that's beside the point. I came to tell you I'm going with you. Why? Asked Chiron. You know the rules, only 3 campers per quest. My reason is justified, said Naruto. I need to get to the underworld and deliver Persephone dress to her. I thought you had a business deal with Hermes, said Annabeth. You make the dresses and he delivers them. Unfortunately, our deal is on temporary hold until the bolt is returned, said Naruto. This is bad as some of my orders are outside the camp. How is that bad? Asked Percy. Percy, Naruto is one of the biggest contributors to the camp, said Annabeth. What? Said a confused Percy. I help make money for the camp, said Naruto. Don't you know one of the basic principles of economics, the concept of supply and demand? If I can't get the orders out, I can't supply the camp with money as the demand will be unmet. Oh, that's bad, said Percy. Yes, that is, said Naruto. If anything, we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone with me going on the quest. I can't argue with that, said Chiron. I guess this will be the first quest with 4 people. But I'll get my stuff then, said Naruto as went towards his workshop. The group consisting of Naruto, Annabeth, Grover and Percy decided to meet on the hill to the camp after they packed everything and said their goodbyes as they do not come back. Several campers wished them good luck and to be safe. The hardest to say goodbye was Naruto, mostly from Aphrodite's cabin because they wouldn't let him go. After helping Naruto and looking over their newly acquired scraps, Chiron showed them their transportation. This is Argus, he will drive you into New York and drop you off at the Greyhound bus station. Said Chiron. Argus was a tall blonde guy that looked like he would fit in with the California surfing scene, except for the issue with his eyes, they're all over his body. Why can't he just drive us the whole way? Asked Percy. 2 reasons. 1, he is bound to the camp, and 2, said Chiron. Have you ever been in a cramped van for multiple hours with prepubescent teens? Interrupted Naruto. Oh, said Percy. Wait, said Luke as he ran towards them. Before you leave, take these. These were a gift from my father and thought that these would be off with you. A quest hasn't been given in years, so kill a few monsters for me. Wow, thanks Luke, said Percy, unaware of Annabeth's blush. After Luke left and out of earshot, Naruto took the shoes from Percy. Percy, do you really think a child of the sea and the supposed lightning bolt will be allowed in the air? The answer is no. The big 3 really hate it when their brother's children cross into their domains. Why do you think the first son of Zeus was afraid of water? You mean Hercules? Asked Percy. Careful where you say that, said Naruto. He's isn't well liked among the campers. He's the reason the queen doesn't like demigods and also makes business transactions even harder on me. Well, that's interesting, said Percy. I thought he was well liked. Percy, Zeus would never let his prized son be seen in a bad light, so he had our mother change the history books so his son would be seen in a good light while putting his wife in the bad light. Percy was left speechless and just proceeded to load his stuff into the truck. For 20 minutes the van was met with silence, but that changed when they exited Lincoln Tunnel. That's when Percy started to act like a child that saw the city for the first time. He was pointing out all the McDonald's, shopping mall and billboards he could see. It has been a while since he last saw modern civilization. So far so good, said Annabeth as she looked around. Oh, what's the worst that could happen, said Percy. Percy, you just possible curse this quest, said Naruto as he continued to knit, because you just provoke the fates. Why do you hate me, said a now depressed Percy. Percy, if you remember your Greek history you'd remember that our parents hate each other. It's been that way since the creation of Athens. Both of our parents presented a gift to the people to choose from. Your father presented a hot salt spring, while Anubis and my mother presented an olive tree. You could tell who won. But what about the chariot, didn't they work together on that? Asked Percy. That was more of a forced partnership, answered Anubis. Before Percy could continue the conversation, Argus arrived at the bus station and began to unpack the van. On the mailbox was a poster with a picture of Percy and saying, "Have you seen this boy?" Percy quickly ripped the poster up before the others could see it, not knowing that Naruto saw it. After Argus gave the bus tickets to the group and began the trip back to camp. "So, we have a destination in mind?" asked Naruto. "I was thinking of heading west," said Percy. "Just a general direction," said Anubis, "that's it." "Yes, that's about it," said Percy. "You really need to think ahead," said Naruto, "we'll just head towards Los Angeles and just go from there." "That sounds good," said Anubis. "I agree," said Grover. As they agreed to this plan, they split into two groups to occupy themselves until the bus could get here. Naruto and Anubis talked about possible attack patterns, while Percy and Grover played hacky sack. "How's your latest attack coming?" asked Anubis. "It's coming well, but the only problem is concentration," said Naruto. "I need to have a clearer head, but in the heat of battle that's kind of hard to do." "Hopefully that issue will be resolved," said Anubis. "The tensile strength of that attack could save us in a fall or provide restraint for bigger and stronger opponents." "I agree with you, but until I can use it flawlessly I can only use it sparsely," said Naruto. "Well, hopefully, you won't need to use it on this quest," said Anubis. The bus came shortly after and the group began to put their stuff on the bus. They got on the bus and decided to sit at the back for two reasons. One for protection and two because that is where the air conditioning was the strongest. It was uneventful until they noticed three grandmothers sitting near the front getting on. Each of them had crumpled velvet dresses, lash gloves, and formless orange knit caps. "I thought you said monsters wouldn't reform for years," whispered Percy. "I said if you're lucky," replied Anubis. "You're obviously not." "Is there a way to escape them?" asked Percy. "Unfortunately no, all the exits windows have been sealed and there isn't a back exit," said Naruto. "They wouldn't attack us with all these people aboard," said Percy. "These people wouldn't notice as the mist would mask it," said Naruto. "What mist?" asked Percy. "Haven't you read the Iliad? There are multiple references to it," answered Anubis. "Get ready because they're coming this way," said Naruto. Seeing the Furies are coming closer, she put her invisible cap on Percy so they wouldn't notice him. Percy got up and tried to sneak past the sisters and get to the front of the bus. He had a close call when one of the sisters stopped and smelled around, but he relaxed when she continued to the back. When the bus was in the Lincoln Tunnel, the Furies decided to strike. Gone were their disguises, revealing their leathery skin, gargoyle talons, bat-like wings and their whips of fire. "Where is it? Where is it?" shouted the Furies. "He isn't here," said Anubis as the people around them started to panic. Naruto noticed the confusion, but before he could sort the issue out the bus started to swerve and jerk. Percy, in a moment of bravery or stupidity, he wrestled the wheel out of the driver's hand. "What is that Vlaka's idiot doing?" thought Naruto as tried to hold on. He's not only endangering himself but also the lives of these mortals. The only bright side of this situation was the conclusion. The driver managed to locate an exit from the highway and onto a rural road. The bus was on a collision course with the Hudson River, but Percy pulled the emergency brake, causing the bus to swerve on the asphalt road. When it made a complete stop, the bus door was thrown open, letting the passengers leave, while leaving the group of demigods room to fight the Furies. "Give us what we want and you won't suffer eternal torment," shouted Ms. Dodd. "You can't have him," yelled Anubis. "I don't think it's Percy they want," thought Naruto as he put on a pair of leather gloves. The Furies made the first move, deciding to split the group of four up, but an odd thing stuck out: they were leaving Naruto alone. Unbeknownst to Naruto was the silent agreement between the female deities concerning him. If Naruto were to be harmed, the assault would face the wrath of Aphrodite, a punishment no one wants. Anubis was fighting close quarters while Grover was supplying long-range fire with tin cans. Percy was doing the best he can with his new sword Anaklusmos, but his training only consisted of 3 days of Luke beating. Grover managed to disarm one of them while Anubis wrestled the other one to the ground. Grover tried to grab the whip only to discover that it was too hot and was now juggling the whip. "Everyone get out," yelled Naruto as he sensed something wrong. His group managed to hear him and ran out of the bus as quickly as they could. No more than 10 seconds later did a bolt of lightning strike the bus, destroying the Furies with it. "Our luggage," shouted Percy. "My cans," shouted Grover. "Well, looks like we're going on foot from here on," said Naruto. "Look, there's one getting away," shouted Anubis as she pointed towards the sky, only to see the Fury split in two. "Not anymore," said Naruto. "Come on, we have quite the distance to make up before we set camp." Realizing what Naruto said, the group turned towards the forest and continued on their quest. After their bus exploded and defeating the Furies, the gods decided to reward them by making it rain on them. "Well, looks like we may need to seek shelter sooner than expected," said Naruto. "I couldn't agree with you more," replied Annabeth. "Hey guys, my reed pipes are working," said Grover after giving the pipes an experimental blow. "Right now our suffering can be accompanied by horrible music," thought Naruto, only to chuckle when Percy walked into a tree. "I'm sure that will bring us some good luck, Percy." "What?" said Percy. "Forget it," said Naruto, "I think I see something ahead." "Yeah, I think it's one of those roadside attractions or something," said Annabeth. As they got close, Annabeth was proven correct as the sight of lawn flamingos and cement bears greeted them. "The only thing troubling them is the name." "Antiumask Dirin Gomen Meperum," said Percy and Annabeth. "Anti-M's Garden Gnome Emporium," translated Grover. "Dyslexia sucks," commented Naruto. "It also makes getting the right address written on the packages hard." "Well, it's the closest shelter we got, so let's get going." As they got closer, they saw that there were multiple stone statues of satyrs, people, and various other subjects. "Is it me or is this place getting creepy?" said Percy. "It's not you," answered Grover as he looked around. "This one looks like my Uncle Ferdinand." "What you might be experiencing is called automatonophobia or fear of human-like objects," said Naruto as he walked closer to the door. "Yeah, maybe you're right," said Percy as he followed Naruto. "Anyone home?" said Naruto as he knocked on the door. He figured someone would answer as the smell of grease and beef saturated the air. The smell really got to them as all the meals they had were healthy, lean-cut meats and cheeses, and the need to eat something unhealthy was calling to them. "Anyone else craving a burger?" asked Percy. All but one hand was raised. Grover, being a vegetarian, was repulsed by the thought. "They do make a veggie burger," said Naruto. "I'm sure they have some." The person that greeted them seemed odd as they weren't expecting a woman from the Middle East. A black shroud covered her body and face, making it difficult to decipher what she really looks like. From what they could gather was the fact she took good care of her nails as they seemed freshly manicured. "Why are you children out at such a late hour?" said the woman in a Middle Eastern accent. Before Naruto could answer, Percy opened his mouth. "We're orphans," said Percy. "Orphans? Surely not," replied the woman. "Yes, you see, we were part of a traveling circus and we got separated from rest of our caravan," said Percy, while the rest of the group just listened to his elaborate lie. "You poor dears, come inside and rest while I get the phone," said the woman. "Thank you so much," said Percy. "Part of the circus, that's the best you could come up with," whispered Naruto. "I panicked," replied Percy. "You should really leave the thinking to Naruto and me," said Annabeth. "Honestly, you must have kelp for a brain." As they looked around, they spotted a place to sit and possibly talk about their next move, but they were interrupted by a tray of food that the woman brought them. "I couldn't find the phone, so why don't you kid eat and relax while I go into the back to get my home phone," said the woman. Not to be rude, but we don't have any money to pay for this, and I just remembered that I brought my cell phone in my backpack just in case of emergencies," said Naruto. "I couldn't get a good signal until now." "That's good, but please stay longer," said the woman as she sat down. "I rarely get any visitors." "Sure, we have time," said Percy without thinking. As the four snacked on fried spuds and burgers, the woman stared at them with unnerving eyes. Percy seems to be her favorite as he was the one that she stared at the most. "So what are your acts?" asked the woman. Grover is the boy that will eat anything, Naruto is a puppeteer, while Annabeth and I tame animals," said Percy. "Really, you four must live some interesting lives," said the woman. "You could say that," said Naruto. "Do you mind if I take a picture of you four?" asked the woman. "I would love to have something to remember this moment by." "I don't think we have time for that," said Naruto. "Yeah, the ringmaster must be getting impatient with us," said Annabeth. "Nonsense, we have time," said Percy. "There's no need to be rude." "If she turns out to be a monster, I am going to kill Percy," thought Naruto. She invited them to the back of her shop so she could get the picture she wanted. "Now why don't you dearies group together to get this picture?" said the woman. "Like this?" asked Percy. "Yes, just like that," replied the woman. "If you don't mind me asking, but where is your camera?" asked Naruto. "Don't worry about that, dearie," said the woman, "but it's so hard sees you properly with this blasted veil." "This doesn't feel right," thought Naruto. "Percy, something's wrong," said Annabeth. "Wrong? What could possibly give you that feeling?" said the woman as her veil was almost unwrapped. "Don't look at her or you'll be stoned," shouted Grover after he took a look at one of the statues. "I am starting to hate this quest more and more," thought Naruto as he hid behind one of the statues. When Naruto looked around, he spotted a reflective ball, so he grabbed it to see what was going on. He saw that Percy managed to escape Medusa's sweet words thanks to Grover whacking her with a stick he found lying around. "I guess those shoes did come in handy," thought Naruto. Apparently Luke gave Percy a pair of shoes that could sprout wings and fly. Annabeth managed to convince Percy not to wear the shoes because he was a son of the sea and him going into the air might be the death of him, literally. Percy gave them to Grover because he was the only one without a magical item. They looked horrible but function beat style any day in his book. Percy the grey-eyed one did this to me, said Medusa. She turned me from a beautiful woman into this monstrosity. I thought only Aphrodite had that ability though. Naruto, while he was getting further away from the monster, you learn something new every day. Join me and forever be free from the burden of the gods, said Medusa. Don't listen to her, Percy shouted Annabeth. Silence, you, shouted Medusa, it's because of the gods that I became like this. Her mother made me like this because I was near her temple. Isn't Poseidon the one that took you to the temple? Said Grover. Before Medusa could reply, a car was driven through the yard and collided with Medusa. That's the best you could do, said Naruto, you just jacked a car and possibly aggravated her more. I panicked, said Annabeth. You insolent child, you just ruined my shop and possible my business, said Medusa. She just got hit by a car and she's worried about her business, thought Naruto. Just convince Percy to slay her so we can go, said Naruto. Why, Percy, you could easily take care of her, said Annabeth. I could, but Percy needs to learn how to fight a monster and us holding his hand won't help anyone, replied Naruto. I'll distract her while convincing Percy to kill her. If I may ask how? Asked Annabeth. A flashbang, replied Naruto, that will give Percy a good chance to defeat her. Good idea, said Annabeth as she began to get closer to Percy. Seeing that Medusa was still recovering and was still staggering, so he retrieved his rapier from his pocket and assumed a thrusting stance. With one hand holding the sword near the pommel while the other hand guided the tip, he calculated the angles the sword needs to hit for the attack to be effective. He aimed to thrust near one of the statues, but instead of the sword piercing the statue, it bounced off the air surrounding it. This pattern continued until a cage was formed around Medusa. Hey Medusa, say cheese, shouted Naruto, Antinaclisticky Clavi, reflective cage. The sword caught some of the light from the surrounding area and amplified it to create a blind flash. This managed to stun Medusa as her eyes were sensitive to high amounts of light. Now's your chance to end this, shouted Naruto to Percy. With his eyes closed and screaming, for what reason Naruto doesn't know, he ran toward Medusa and managed to sever her head from her neck. Good job, Percy, but you might want to work on your stealth, commented Naruto, now to grab a bag and seal her head. What do you mean, shouldn't all of her be gone? Asked Percy. Percy, Medusa's head near goes away, it just keeps wriggling until it can regenerate a new body, said Naruto as he saw his sister coming with some plastic bags. So what do we do with it? Asked Grover as he stared at the plastic-covered head as the group went towards Medusa's warehouse. I have an idea, said Percy as he took the head and put it on a table. They didn't know what Percy was up, but they could sense some hostility from Percy. After a few minutes, Percy found what he was looking for, a cardboard box, and placed Medusa's head in it. He wrote the address of Olympus on it and put a few drachmas in the small satchel on the box. Percy, the gods would see this as an insult, said Annabeth, after figuring out what Percy was up to. I agree with Annabeth on this, said Naruto, but you seemed adamant about this. Try and squeeze in this letter to Hermes. Why? Asked Percy. It's our renewed contact, I just need his signature on it, said Naruto. Do you ever have a day off from your business? Asked Grover. I do, but it's rare, very very rare, said Naruto. After the package disappeared and the group gathered some supplies from the warehouse, they resumed their quest. They walked for 6 hours until the fatigue and exhaustion catch up to them. We need to set up camp for the night, said Naruto. Looked towards the sky to see the position of the moon. The cleared patch should be up ahead, said Grover. When they entered the field, they saw that it was relatively clean and dry. I'll set up camp while the rest of you look around to see, said Naruto as he reached into his backpack and retrieved several pieces of paper. When Grover, Annabeth, and Percy explored further, they saw that this was a popular party spot as plastic cups littered the ground along with other pieces of trash. Sickening, commented Grover, mankind can be disgusting. Right, you're an environmentalist, said Percy. Yes, and with the rate humans are polluting the earth I'll never be able to find Pan, said Grover. Pam, said Percy, like the cooking spray. No, Pan, the god of wild places, said Grover. I plan to get my searcher's license and find him. Ever since his disappearance humans have trashed and tarnished his kingdom, satyrs everywhere are hoping to find his so he can restore his kingdom. Come on guys, let's get back to Naruto, said Annabeth. I'm sure Naruto is done setting up camp by now. It's only been 5 minutes, said Percy as he followed Annabeth. My brother can work very fast, said Annabeth as they entered the field. What greeted them was the sight of a wooden cabin with the lights on and the smell of food being cooked. Took you guys long enough, said Naruto as he walked from the cabin. Where did the cabin come from? Asked a confused Percy. I packed it, replied Naruto. How? Asked Percy. I had it in my backpack for occasions like this, said Naruto. That doesn't answer my question, said Percy. Nor will I, said Naruto as he walked back into the cabin. Welcome to the supernatural world, Percy, said Annabeth as she joined her brother in the cabin. June 10th. The night went by fast, and the Apollo's chariot started to rise over the horizon, and the group was in for an unexpected surprise. That's a dog, pointed out Percy. Why do you have a dog? His name is Gladiola, said Grover, and he's our ticket to the west. Now say hello. This was what greeted Percy in the morning, a pink poodle wearing a sweater. He was expecting breakfast and maybe the sight of Grover eating grass, but this just seemed weird. Percy looked towards Annabeth and Naruto for help, but received just do it looks from them, so Percy said hello to the little dog. I found his in the forest and discovered that there is a $200 reward for his return, said Grover. Okay, that makes sense, but was it wearing that sweater when you found him? Asked Percy. I made him the sweater because he was cold, said Naruto as he ate his breakfast consisting of chips and various other gas station treats. He growled at us when we tried to remove it. How did you know about the award? Asked Percy. He told me about it, answered Grover. The dog can talk, said Percy. Percy, we are the offspring of mythical gods that battle a monster that wants to destroy us, said Naruto. A dog that can talk isn't that far-fetched. But how did the dog know about the award? Asked Percy. Percy, what did I just say? Said Naruto. Percy couldn't think of a response to that. Naruto refolded the cabin and placed it into his backpack while Annabeth, Grover and Percy covered their tracks so monster wouldn't be able to track them. After checking everything, they began the trek to the city to collect the award and resume their quest. When they located the house where Gladiola Ann rang the doorbell, the owner was now what they expecting. She was an upside-down vase, thick on top and skinny on the bottom, with a polka-dotted dress and dual-colored hair. Naruto actually shuddered at this woman's dress, and it was horrible and tacky. When Annabeth looked behind her, she saw a naked male posing in front of a canvas. Yes, said the woman. We are here to collect the reward for your missing pet, said Annabeth. Ah yes, Gladiola, such a little troublemaker, said the woman. I'm glad that you have returned him and even clothed him for me. No problem, ma'am, answered Annabeth. I'll be back in a minute and get your reward, said the woman as she turned around and looked towards the man. Honey, take 5. The woman came back and gave Annabeth $200 and an additional $50 for the sweater. Your sweater really cost $50? Asked Percy while they walked towards the train station. Depends on the material, my most expensive one was worth around $2,000, answered Naruto. What? What was it made out of? Asked Percy. A combination of leather, celestial bronze, and wool, said Naruto. Wow, said Percy. You could say that, said Naruto. They got to the train station with no problems and managed to find good seats close to the dining cart and sleeping cart. No one seemed curious why a group of teenagers was on a multi-day train trip without an adult in sight. It's been 2 days and the only sight that greeted the group were empty fields and various other open spaces. Since Percy didn't have the foresight to pack something to do in the future, he realized this as he watched Naruto knitting and Annabeth reading. Grover tried to practice his pipes but was forced to stop as it was disturbing the passengers. Percy looked out the window again and spotted a herd of centaurs galloping across the plain. Percy looked around to see if anyone else was looking at them, but saw that everyone was looking at their phones or were preoccupied with a magazine or book. Why doesn't anyone see this? Whispered Percy. That's the power of the mist, said Naruto. When supernatural creatures enter the mortal world, the air around them conceals their movements. There are exceptions, but they're rare. What exceptions? Asked Percy. Some mortals can see past the mist and see what the world actually looks like, said Naruto. Must be interesting. Said Percy. You could say that. Said Naruto. Anyone hungry? I could go for a bite, said Annabeth as she found a good place to stop in her book. The two siblings got up from their seats and proceeded to the car behind them. The sight of various meats and loaves of bread greeted them. Each smell was pleasant, but a new smell was detected, the smell of wheat and freshly turned soil. The wheat smell was expected, but the smell of soil was surprising. Is it just me or do you smell soil? Asked Annabeth. It's not just you, said Naruto, that means only 2 things. Demeter is here, or we just passed a farm. Why just those 2? Asked Annabeth. Those are just the most likely conclusions. Answered Naruto, and I think it's Demeter. Why do you say that? Asked Annabeth. Just that there's a woman that looks like she's been in the forest for a month and is promoting all wheat cereal, said Naruto. Annabeth looked around and spotted a tan woman with what looked like wheat in her hair and seems to be wearing a tie-dyed shirt. Her shirt was light brown and she was wearing sandals. She also had a cart full of various brands of whole grain cereals and had a pot of what smelled like oatmeal. She could just be a hippie, said Annabeth. Then explain the godly aura, said Naruto. I got nothing, said Annabeth. Let's just see why she's here, said Naruto as the two walked towards the hidden god. "What can I get for you little saplings?" said the woman once Annabeth and Naruto reached. "We know you're the one who walks behind the wheat and the one that despises the one in the ground," said Naruto. "Alright, you catch me," said Demeter, "I'm just here to update you on what's happening on Olympus. The gods are starting to take sides, and it's only a matter of time before this news reaches the minor deities." "This is bad, very very bad," said Naruto. "If the news of one of Big Three is severely weakened, the change of an uprising also goes up. The king's popularity isn't the best, and with the bolt being his main source of power, he would be easy pickings. That's why I came so urgently, we can only hold Olympus together for so long," said Demeter. "We're going as fast as we can, and with us still teaching Percy about the world does slow our progress," said Naruto. "That is just an unforeseen obstacle on this quest," said Demeter. "This actually leads to my second reason for being here. Naruto, I need you to make me something for when I see my daughter." "Demeter, if it's the design you sent me last time then my answer is still no," said Naruto. "Why?" said Demeter, "it's just a simple gown." "You want me to sew together a dress composed of multiple trees, with the stitching being tree bark," said Naruto. "The only trees we have are inhabited with various animals and nymphs. I think the idea of me using their homes for an order wouldn't go well with them." "Well, I sure they would understand if you tell them it was me," said Demeter. "I can't do that either as I can't disclose client information to other people," said Naruto. "It was in my contract." "What contract?" said Demeter. "The one I signed when the order going to Olympus started to going into triple digits," said Naruto. "I am sorry, but if you have a problem with the policy, then you're going to have to talk to the one that holds my contract." "And who holds your contract?" said a stern Demeter. "The king of the gods and god of justice," said Naruto. "Well, looks like I now have a topic for our next meeting," said Demeter. "If there is a next meeting," said Annabeth. "I've spent enough time in the mortal and I need to go back to Olympus. I wish you 4 luck on this quest," said Demeter as she began to disappear. "Well, this just added more stress to this already important quest," said Naruto. "Was she serious about the dress?" asked Annabeth. "Sadly, she is," said Naruto. "Some of the gods want me to make clothes out of the weirdest materials." After meeting the agricultural goddess and getting food for the rest of their group, Naruto resumed his knitting. Throughout the journey, the group discussed various topics such as what the best way to slay a monster to how to properly knead. They also had to help Grover multiple times because he fidgeted in his sleep and his false feet would fall off. This wasn't a major problem, but sleeping in chairs would make anyone cranky. The money they received from returning the dog could only go so far as they got their seats, but not a bet as that was an extra $50 per person. They did get blankets and pillows for their seats, but Percy drooled in his sleep and Grover lost in the game of gods, rock paper scissors. When the news of their next stop is St. Louis, Annabeth gained an excited gleam in her eyes as the possibility for her to see the arch was within her grasp. The delay also helped as they had 4 hours to tour one of the great architectural feats done by man. This is what she always wanted to do, build something that would withstand the test of time. When Naruto first learned of this, he didn't really care as that was a shared dream among their siblings. The funniest reaction was from Percy as he was the victim of her random bouts of facts about the arch. Grover managed to avoid Annabeth by going over to the snack bar to get something to eat. When Grover got his snack and rejoined the group, they entered the underground section of the arch to see the various artifacts and informational plaque. "Are there any monsters near us?" whispered Percy. "We're in the ground," said Grover, "it always smells of monsters." "Guys, what do you know of god symbols?" asked Percy. "A few things, but why do you ask?" said Naruto. "Well, doesn't Ha," said Percy before being silenced by Annabeth. "Do you mean our friend downstairs?" said Annabeth. "Yes, our friend deep underground. Doesn't he have a cap like Annabeth?" asked Percy. "The Helm of Darkness," said Naruto, "his symbol of power and the reason why all rational creatures fear the dark. With it, he could become darkness, never seen or heard, only felt. With the ability to drive a person crazy just by being in the same area, with it he is the master of fear and paranoia." "Yeah, that," said Percy, "with that power how do we know he isn't here right now?" "We don't know, but if he was, I think he would be more concerned with me as I have his wife's order." "Why?" asked Percy. "The last time his wife didn't get her order she threw a fit and caused various weather patterns," said Naruto. "Like what?" asked Percy. "Droughts, death of flower beds, raining fish," said Naruto. "What raining fish?" asked Percy. "How can she cause that?" "She's friends with your dad's wife," said Naruto. "You have no idea how much power their wives have." After viewing the underground sections of the arch, the group of 4 entered one of the elevators going to the top. It was cramped, but out of all the people in the elevator, a big woman with her pet chihuahua seemed the oddest. The first thing was her dog, she shouldn't have it in the first place as pets were forbidden within the arch. The second thing was her dress, she wore warm clothing in an area around 80 degrees. When the dog began barking towards Percy, the woman shushed Sunny, but when Percy commented on the name, she contradicted herself by saying no. When the elevator stopped at the top and they entered the main platform, the ranger told them that they had half an hour before they had to close. Percy was accompanied by Annabeth as she commented on the changes she would change, but Naruto stayed close to the mysterious woman, just in case she attacks. The 30 minutes went by fast, the rest of the people loaded onto the elevator, including a reluctant Annabeth and Grover, and descended into the lower levels. The only people remaining were Percy, Naruto, and the mysterious woman. The woman's dog started barking like crazy. "Calm down, Sonny," said the mysterious woman as the dog kept barking, "well if you insist." The woman's skin started to peeling to reveal scales underneath, her teeth became elongated and pointed. Her chihuahua started to grow larger with its fur started to become midnight black, its head turned into that of a lion's, while its tail turned into a diamondback snake. "I see that my suspicions were right," said Naruto as he put a pair of leather gloves on, "I just didn't realize how big of a threat you would be." "Who is she?" asked Percy. "Allow me, I am Echidna," said Echidna, the mother of monsters. "Isn't that an anteater?" said Percy. This only enraged her. "I hate Australia and being confused for that blasted creature," yelled Echidna as Naruto slapped his face. "Percy, think before you speak because you just make this fight a lot harder," said Naruto. "Son, attack," said Echidna. The Chimera did as he was commanded as he opened his jaw and fired a column of fire at the two. That dived out of the way, Percy looked for his pen, while Naruto's fingers started twitching. The Chimera seems to focus on Percy letting Naruto to properly plan out an attack strategy. The big moment came when the Chimera decided to pounce on Percy and finish him off. It was in mid-flight when Naruto jerked his hands to the side, pinning the Chimera in the air, looking like it froze in mid-air. This confused Percy until he spotted thin wires when he looked at a certain angle. "I see, you're her descendant," said Echidna. "I never would have thought I would run into you." "Yes, my mother is Athena," said Naruto. "No, not her, to think she would have a son related to her," said Echidna. "Then who are you talking about?" said Naruto as he started to become agitated. "Now what's the hurry, I meant don't the children of Athena like a good challenge," said Echidna. Before Naruto could retort, his strings loosened and the Chimera's tail managed to bite Percy in the arm. As the venom coursed through his veins, his vision started to become blurry and he started to lose his sense of balance. While Naruto was busy fighting the Chimera, Percy stumbled near the hole that was made in the wall by the Chimera's first attack. Naruto's main attack strategy consisted of ensnaring his head and neck while tying his tail and legs. This worked as it prevented the Chimera from striking him with his claws or biting him, but he still needed to dodge the snake since he needed a minute to rearrange his strings, but he was making do with what he got. The perfect moment presented itself when the Chimera tried to go for an overhead strike. This made his supple stomach vulnerable, leaving Naruto enough time to shoot a cluster of strings out of his finger and into the Chimera's body. Luckily, the bullet managed to pierce through the creature's heart and flew out the other side. It disintegrated into golden dust. "I never thought I would use that technique," thought Naruto, and saw Percy falling through the hole in the wall. Looking around, he saw that Echidna managed to escape among the chaos, but he was more concerned with Percy's life, but relaxed when he was the river underneath. Percy should be safe in the water, thought Naruto, but the bigger question is, how do I down? Naruto looked around the arch to see if there were any mortal watching and saw that they were distracted by the police. When he saw that the coast was clear, he prayed to Zeus to forgive him and manipulated some string to latch onto the clouds to provide him with his escape route. Once the strings were secure and weaved the strings together to make a rope, he jumped and began his climb down. It took about 3 minutes for him to get down and be greeted by Annabeth and Grover. They asked him about the fight and where Percy is. Naruto informed them that Percy fell into the river and is recovering from the venom and any possible wounds. They waited for Percy to surface, which took about 3 minutes, and tried to sneak away without being detected with some success. A little girl saw Percy and waved to him. The four managed to make it back to the train station just in time to get their seats and become comfortable. "So did you get any souvenirs?" asked Naruto. "No," said a now depressed Annabeth. "But because I managed to grab a wooden model set of the arch," said Naruto as he presented a flat sheet. "I wanted to give you it after with quest was done with, but I think you need some good news." "Thank you, Naruto," said Annabeth, "you're one heck of a brother." 7 days, the days remaining until the summer solstice and the deadline for this quest. The train could only take them to Denver, so they were on their own. They smelled of body odor, and the train only offered so much food. "We need to contact Chiron and tell him of your progress," said Annabeth. "How are we supposed to that?" said Percy. "You told me that phone will attract monsters." "She's not talking about using a phone," said Naruto. "We'll most likely IM Chiron." "Instant messaging?" asked Percy. "No, iris messaging," said Annabeth as they arrived at a do-it-yourself car wash. "We're using the services of Iris, the goddess of rainbows and the second messenger to the gods," said Naruto. "But I thought Hermes did that," asked Percy. "You have a lot to learn about the gods, Percy," said Naruto, "especially the minor gods." "Do any of you have a quarter?" asked Annabeth. "Sorry, no," said Naruto. "Anyway, back to the topic, the minor gods barely get any credit for what they do. Asclepius is the god of healing and medicine, but most of the credit goes to Apollo, as he is also a god of medicine." Percy didn't know what to say as his knowledge of history was basic at best, so he couldn't argue with him. Percy saw that Grover was pumping the water with Annabeth held the nozzle with a fine mist of water coming out of it. Annabeth handed the nozzle to Naruto as she took out a drachma. "Oh goddess, accept this offering," said Annabeth, and afterward tossed the coin into the mist, Half-Blood Hill. Nothing happened at first, but the mist changed into an image of the camp, the site of strawberry fields, and the occasional camper would appear. The image stopped when the appearance of Luke appeared. He looked behind when he felt that someone was watching him. "Hey guys, how's the quest going?" asked Luke. "So far this quest could be better as we ran into Medusa and a squad of furies," said Naruto as his sister was straightening out her clothes and hair. "How are things on your end?" "Things could be better," said Luke. "News of the lightning bolt got out and the camp is starting to take sides." "How bad are we talking?" asked Naruto. "Some battles have broken out," said Luke. "Most of them were started by Ares' cabin, and Aphrodite's cabin has set up a defensive barricade around your shop." "Why?" asked Naruto. "Apparently it was an order from their mother," said Luke. "They also had Hephaestus's children help build some of the walls." "Those girls can be persuasive," said Naruto. "I know from personal experience." "Don't we all?" said Luke. "Listen, Hades had to be the one, he had the motive and opportunity. He was there at the winter conference, and we all know how much he hates his siblings." "Don't make any assumptions until we have definitive facts," said Naruto. "I know, but all the facts lead to Hades," said Luke. "I have to go, a new fight just broke out." After the image faded and the mist dissipated, the group of four were just standing there just digest all this new information. "This is shaping up to be another Trojan War, except with time all the gods will be involved," said Naruto. "Now we have even more pressure to finish this quest," said Annabeth. "Why is Aphrodite's cabin guarding your workshop?" asked Percy. "You really need to read more, Percy," said Naruto. "She is the goddess of love, lust, beauty, and procreation, so she would protect any of her precious resources. Alchemy." "Again I ask why?" asked Percy. "Percy, who do you think makes most of her clothes, or why her daughters always flock me whenever I come out?" said Naruto. "I'm one of her precious resources, so if my shop is destroyed in the crisis her orders would be delayed, and everyone knows she doesn't have any patience when it comes to her clothing." "Oh, well I guess that's a good reason," said Percy. Percy remained silent while Annabeth and Naruto started to discuss possible strategies in the future. After 20 minutes until they reached a retro diner and sit at an empty table. A waitress came to their table and asked if they had any money, but before they could answer the roar of a motorcycle was heard outside. It was the size of a baby elephant with a gas tank painted with flame diesels and has a shotgun holster on the side. The seat was disturbing as it looked like Caucasian skin with various lines of stitching. The guy was huge and muscular with a red shirt covering his massive arms. He also wore blue denim jeans and a leather duster. On his side was a hunting knife with a leather holster with depictions of war. He had on a dark red shade and had greasy black hair, but the feature that drew their attention were his scars. His body was covered in them from chop marks to puncture marks, but for some reason, he felt familiar. The biker entered the diner, walked towards the group and sat at their table. The waitress didn't seem fazed as she asked the same question. "It's on me," said the cyclist as the waitress stood still. "Why are still here?" "Hello Ares, always a pleasure," said Naruto. "I see that you still refuse my services." "Naruto is nice," whispered Annabeth. "It's alright, I like them with a little attitude," said Ares, "as long as he knows who's in charge." "You're Clariss's father," said Percy. "Yes, and I heard you broke her spear," said Ares. "She was asking for it," said Percy. "It's alright, but not why I'm here," said Ares. "I have a proposition for you." The waitress brought a significant amount of food to the table consisting of burgers, fries and various other diner classics. Ars dug in his pocket for drachma, but before he could give them, Naruto intervened by giving the waitress a roll of money. "Just keep the change, something tells me we'll be here for a while," said Naruto. "Smart, anyway back to the assignment," said Ares. "What's the assignment?" asked Naruto as Percy would have said something stupid. "I left my shield at the abandoned water park after my date," said Ares. "Get the shield and get back here." "Why can't you go and get it yourself?" said Percy. "I could turn you into a prairie dog and run you over with my ride," said Ares. "My time is precious and I'm giving you a chance to make this little quest of yours go faster, including information on your mother." Ares' warlike aura was affecting Percy as his fist was clenched underneath the table. Naruto, the closest to Percy, could tell Percy was holding his anger back. "We'll try our best to retrieve your shield," said Naruto, "just make sure you keep your end of the bargain." "Do you doubt I would keep my end?" said Ares. "Slightly, as history has shown that some of the gods do go back on their word," said Naruto. "Wasn't that the reason for the oath?" "You're clever, but that wisdom of yours will get you in trouble one day," said Ares. "Good thing my mother hardly notices me," said Naruto as the group scooted out of their seats. "I think she sees me more like a specimen than her child." "That's why I like you, kid," said Ares. "You also like me because I make you girlfriend of yours happy," said Naruto. "Also true," said Ares as he dug into a plate of chicken wings. It took about a few minutes to locate the water park, and by the look of it, it did not look like the place a man would take a woman. The letters were falling off and the rides looked like they would fall apart at the slightest touch. "Man, what kind of girlfriend does Ares have?" said Percy. "I would be careful if I were you, his girlfriend can be temperamental," said Annabeth. "She values her beauty above everything else, and trust me I would know," said Naruto. "Who is she, Echidna?" said Percy. "No, Percy, Ares' girlfriend is Aphrodite," said Naruto, "as in the one that decides your love life." "So she hooked up with Ares," said Percy. "She must really like bikers." "Not really, her taste varies depending on her mood," said Naruto. "How would you know this?" said Percy. "I'm the one that makes most of her clothes," said Naruto. "What? I thought she was married to someone," asked Percy. "Hephaestus," said Grover. Percy wanted to continue the conversation, but the entrance to the park came up and they discovered their first obstacle. The gate was locked. "Maya," shouted Grover as his shoes sprouted wings and the flow over the fence. "I'll take care of this," said Naruto as he touched the gate, flattening it and allowing the remaining three to pass through. The names of the rides were humorous, such as Ankle Biter Island and Head Over Wedgie, but the first thing Annabeth saw was the park store. "Cloths, fresh clothes," said Annabeth. "She may deny it, but she does have her girly moments," thought Naruto as he followed his sister. After changing into some fresh clothes and storing some additional supplies to a large backpack, the group of four started to look for Ares' shield. "I wonder why Ares left his date so suddenly?" asked Percy. "He probably suspect Hephaestus set a trap for the two," said Annabeth. "He knows," said Percy. "Percy, he's known for multiple centuries, he even caught the two in a net and invited the other gods and goddess to laugh at them," said Naruto. "That's the reason why the two go to these places for their dates." "I believe we just found our objective," said Annabeth. Looking at what Annabeth was pointing at an empty pool that was 25 feet in diameter, 10 feet deep and surrounded by multiple statues of Cupid, and in the middle of it was a bronze shield in the middle of it in one of the abandoned boats. "This seems too easy," thought Naruto, "something doesn't add up." "Grover, any monster nearby?" asked Percy. "I can't smell anything," said Grover. "Are you sure you didn't smell anything on the arch?" said Percy. "Percy, we were underground and surrounded by other scents," said Naruto. "Anyone could have missed the scent." While they were talking, Annabeth looked at one of the statues and saw the Greek letter Eta on the base. "Eta? Why does that sound familiar?" thought Annabeth. "Well, I guess one of us should go down," said Percy. "One of us should accompany you," said Naruto, "strength in numbers." "I'll go," said Grover. "No, you're needed up here," said Percy, "you're our Red Baron." "I guess I'll stay up here too as I could provide you guys with a rope to get back up," said Naruto. "Annabeth is not going to like this," thought Naruto as he started to weave the rope together. He was about 5 feet in when he finally heard Annabeth's reply to accompanying Percy down into the bowl. Apparently, Percy neglected to see what the ride was called, Thrill Ride O' Love. "This is not your parents' tunnel of love," and was embarrassed because she was afraid someone would see them. "Annabeth, we're the only ones here," said Percy, "so I highly doubt anyone will see us." "If anything happens I'm blaming you," said Annabeth as they began to descend. It took a while, but the two made it to the bottom and made their way to the shield. Percy saw the shield and saw something else, a bright pink scarf that looked like it was made from silk. For some odd reason he was drawn to it, but before he could touch it Annabeth snatched it. "No, you under the influence of love magic will only hinder the quest," said Annabeth as she folded the scarf, "just grab the shield." Percy went into the cart to grab the shield but was met with some resistance. He tried multiple times, and after the 5th try, he finally managed to lodge the shield loose, only to activate a trap. The shield was connected to a string that would enable a series of gears, turning the Cupid statues and having them fire at the rim of the pool, trapping the unfortunate target. Once the threads were anchored, it would unravel creating a fine net when Grover tried to unravel the strands, only to find out that the string would latch onto anything. To make matters worse, the statue's head started to open up to reveal camera and began to count down. When Naruto came closer to the net an odd reaction started to happen, the threads would make expand, letting Naruto see what was going on inside, and what he saw was hilarious and scary. Hephaestus created thousands of mechanical spiders, and seeing his sister climbing on top of Percy was funny to him, especially when Annabeth blinded Percy while he was swinging his sword. Naruto anchored the rope he was making on the rim and began to descend, only having to hold on when a sudden earthquake happened. There was a water pipe underneath the pool, and it busted, filling the pool with water. The Cupid statues were almost finished counting when Percy had the brilliant idea to steer the boat towards the tunnel, and having Naruto and Grover guess where they would end up. The two looked at a map of the park and saw that the exit was only a few feet away from the entrance. They raced to the exits to see Percy and Annabeth fly out of the ride. Luckily the two were caught. Percy was caught by Grover, while Annabeth was caught by Naruto. "Do you still have the shield?" asked Naruto. "Yeah, it's right here on my arm," said Percy. "Good, then this side quest can be completed," said Naruto. "Now let's get back to the diner and talk with Ares." The walk back to the diner took longer as their legs hurt and they were exhausted, Percy especially. They saw that Ares was resting on his motorcycle, cleaning his nail with a knife, waiting for them to deliver his shield. "Finally, I thought you would never return," said Ares. "We got your shield," said Naruto, "just hold up your end and we'll be on our way." "Why is he so antsy?" thought Annabeth. "Sounds good," said Ares, "that truck over there will take you to Los Angeles." "Thank you," Ares said Naruto as he began to walk towards the truck that Ares unlocked. "Wait, what about my mother?" asked Percy. "All I can tell you is she isn't dead," said Ares. "Hades is most likely keeping her as a bargaining chip against Poseidon." This gave Percy some relief and grief as it seemed the gods were serious about going to war. He was glad that his mother was still alive, but being told that his mother was going to be used as a bargaining chip did dampen his mood. The truck that Ares provided had the title of Kindness International. Humane Zoo Transport, and by the look of it wasn't legal as the truck was dirty and smelled of decay. The staff was busy getting something to eat. This gave the group plenty of time to sneak in and look over the provisions that Ares gave them. In the backpack that Ares gave them contained double stuffed Oreos, $20, fresh clothes and a bag of drachmas. "Do you have a history with Ares?" asked Percy. "You could say that," said Naruto. "When I was first beginning, a lot of my orders were coming from Aphrodite and she did pay me, but I found out later that she was paying more attention to my clothes than Ares. He personally came to me and basically told me to stay away from his girl or else. I was scared, but her orders just kept coming and I was under the obligation to fulfill the orders that were issued to me. When Ares found out that I was continuing to make Aphrodite's clothes, he basically sent a hit on me. Only his children followed the hit, but I was basically forced to stay in my shop. After a week and several attempts on my life, Aphrodite got wind of it and basically made her own decree. Should anyone harm me, he or she would face her wrath for all eternity." "But how did it stick?" asked Percy. "She is just as powerful as the big three and no one wants to face an angry female," said Naruto, "god or otherwise." "So Ares is basically angry at you because you're spoiling his girlfriend," said Percy. "In layman terms, yes, but he's also a god and could smite me with no difficulties," said Naruto. "I respect and fear him, but I'm more afraid of his girlfriend." The group managed a good places to hide on the truck and discovered the true purpose of this truck, transportation to the black market, as locked in cages were an albino lion, a zebra, and an antelope. They looked like they've seen better days as the lion was skinny, the zebra had gum in its mane, and the antelope had a balloon tied to its antlers. "Disgusting, we're riding on a truck for illegal trafficking," said Naruto as he removed the gum from the zebra's mane. "Who knows how much these animals would go for? Who cares, these animals should be free, not caged up and paraded around," said Grover as he fixed a food problem and Percy refilled their water bowls. They got comfortable in the back and nibbled on the Oreos, one of the turnips for Grover, and tried to discuss any topic they could think of. "So Annabeth, what's with the beads?" asked Percy. "These signify surviving another year," said Annabeth. "I've been at the camp for 5 years, training and hoping to test out the skills we learned." "That's interesting, but what about the ring?" asked Percy. "That Percy will come in time as that signifies a tragic time in her past," said Naruto. The truck ride was horrible as the cages were never cleaned, so several bugs swarmed around their heads. The only one that didn't seem to mind was Naruto. It was either the web of strings he had around him or it was his aura, but the bugs that did get close to him seemed to freeze and die on the spot. This was an abnormality that plagued Naruto's life ever since he could remember. It did save him money on bug repellent. He first noticed it when in the sweatshop that he worked at, as the various beetles and even the rats always went around him or died on the spot. Annabeth also noticed this when she first meets him and would always stay close to him when they went through the various marshes and coastal areas. She never really questioned it, but now that she has time to really observe her estranged brother, his abilities and personality didn't add up. He has a pet spider when he should be afraid of them, he has no interest in architecture, and he possesses unusual abilities. She researched countless books on the subject and there was only one other reference to Naruto's abilities, but it was to one of their worst enemies, Arachin. Just like her, Naruto could produce and manipulate strings. This only widened the gap as one of Annabeth's brothers was reading over her shoulder and managed to connect the dots. This gave them a reason to make a petition to remove him from the camp. Only Athena's children signed it. Annabeth put on her hat, Percy and Grover hid under some turnip sacks, while Naruto suspended himself on the roof. The truck jerked to a stop, alerting the group that the crew would check on the animals for well-being. "Man, it stinks in here," said SMUGGLER number 1, "it's times like this I wish I hauled appliances." "Well, they're animals, of course they stink," said smuggler number 2, "these animals will fetch us a pretty penny." When Grover saw how these humans were treating the animals, infuriating him. Ever since Pan disappeared, humans have trashed and pillaged his kingdom. Grover wanted to attack these humans, but Percy was holding him back as not to blow their cover. He would have continued his struggle, but the sound of knocking distracted both Grover and the smugglers. "Did you hear that knocking, Eddie?" asked smuggler number 1. "Yeah, you out and check it out," said Eddie. "No way, Eddie, it could be a cop," said smuggler number 1. "Relax, Maurice, just distract them and I'll get the papers," said Eddie. Eddie began to exit the trailer but was surprised when he was snagged and was dragged into the air. "Eddie!" shouted Maurice, but was too dragged in the air by his feet. "Looked at what I catch," said Naruto as he began to descend from the roof, a couple of flies. "Let us down, you brat," shouted Maurice. "Okay," said Naruto as he flexed his finger and dropped them on their heads, rendering them unconscious. When Grover saw the bodies, he told Percy that it was safe, but Percy was shocked when he saw the bodies. "What did you do?" said a frantic Percy, "are they dead?" "No, they're just unconscious," said Naruto, "and I just did what they asked for." "But why?" said a still shocked Percy. "Percy, do you really think they would have just let us go?" said Naruto as he was freeing the animals. "Don't answer that, they wouldn't have, as we now knew what they were doing and they would have threatened us to keep us quiet." Percy didn't really have an answer to that or even know what to say next. "Now stop standing around and help us free these animals," said Naruto. After freeing all the animals and having Grover place a blessing on them, the group of 4 continued on their journey. They managed to avoid police detection and find a place to discuss what to do next. They discovered that they were near a casino. It didn't stand out as Las Vegas is a weird place in general, but for some odd reason, it just seems to draw them in. They wanted to go the other way, but the intoxicating scent that was coming from the front door just seems to overwhelm their other senses. "A little look wouldn't hurt, right?" said Percy. "I agree with Percy on this," said Grover, "it could be a sign from the gods. Or it could be another trap," thought Naruto as he followed the others into the Lotus Casino. They saw that the interior had various video games and extreme sports equipment. "Welcome to the Lotus Casino," said the bellop, "we were expecting you and have your room ready to go." "Or what?" asked Percy. "Your room, 4001, and if you need anything just contact the front desk, here are your Lotus Cash cards and have a nice stay." "Well, that was weird," said Grover. "Should we go to the room or should we run?" said Annabeth. "Let's just go up to the room and freshen up," said Percy. "I'll catch up later, I need to take care of something," said Naruto as he walked towards the bar. "Okay, see you later," said Percy. Naruto never told anyone this, but to increase personal relations with his customers, he would try to schedule a lunch with them. Aphrodite's would usually consist of French bistros and cafes, while Hades would take place in old diners and goth restaurants. It may go against several business practices, but after a few months, it proved profitable as he was getting more and more orders. He did notice a trend going on with Hades' orders, as most of it were for children's clothes. When they met up later, he asked them about, and he revealed has 2 children, Nico and Bianca D'Angelo, and he's been hiding them in Las Vegas. Naruto approved of this decision as Zeus was always paranoid and would smite the 2 in the name of justice. What surprised Naruto even further when he learned of their unique situation, apparently they were born in the 1940s and Hades put them in a state of suspended animation. He made to the bar and saw the oldest sibling, Bianca D'Angelo, a black-haired girl at the age of 11 wearing a forest green beret, a light brown jacket and blue denim jeans. "Hello," said Naruto, "how are you?" "Fine, how are you?" said Bianca. "Good, I'm Naruto," said Naruto. "Bianca," said Bianca, "if this is an attempt to get a date out of me, you should know I have a little brother to look after." "I know about Nico," said Naruto. "How?" asked a slightly freaked out Bianca. "We've seen each other before," said Naruto, "I occasionally deliver your clothes." "Oh, you're the weird spider guy," said Bianca. "Spider guy," thought Naruto, "I'm usually the weird son of Athena." "Yes, that's me," said Naruto. "Do you know who makes them?" asked Bianca. "That is also me," said Naruto. "Wow, to think someone my age can run a successful business," said Bianca. She has no idea how much time has passed since the 1940s, thought Naruto. Trust me, it's not easy, said Naruto. I can imagine, said Bianca. Who's your biggest customer? Can't say, said Naruto. I get so many orders daily, and with some of my clients they want their clothes by a specific deadline. I am scared by some of the daring designs I had to create, thought Naruto, who know that Aphrodite had a thing for snakeskin. Are you looking for an intern to help out? Asked Bianca. Yes, but unfortunately you're too young to legally work, said Naruto. But what about you? You're younger than me, said Bianca. I own the business, and in the eyes of the law I'm 26, replied Naruto. How? Asked Bianca. Let's just say one of my customers' wife can be very persuasive, said Naruto. She seems very powerful, or he is seriously whipped, said Bianca. You have no idea how right you are, said Naruto. The two talked for a few more minutes until Naiko, a black-haired 8-year-old wearing a light brown aviation jacket and light blue jeans. Bianca, who is this guy? Asked Naiko. This is the person that makes most of our clothes, said Bianca. Including that weird package you wouldn't let me see, said Naiko. What is he talking about? Asked Naruto. Nothing, yelled a blushing Bianca, but this only piqued Naruto's interest. Naiko, what did this box look like? Asked Naruto. Well, from what I could remember it was pink, and said Naiko, only to be silenced by Bianca's hand. Say anything else, and your precious cards will disappear, threatened Bianca. I'll be good, said Naiko. It seems I have some competition, said Naruto, nothing I haven't handled, but those must have been some special clothes if you're embarrassed about them. Before Bianca could explode for embarrassment, Naruto was dragged from the bar and towards the exit. We have to get out of here, shouted Annabeth as she dragged her brother. They finally figured it out, thought Naruto. That begs the question of how much time has passed in the real world. When they did get outside, they saw that the sky was blanketed by black storm clouds while the sound of thunder banged in the air. Guys, we have a problem, said Grover as he looked at the newspaper. 5 days have passed while they were in the hotel, leaving them only 1 day to complete the quest. Great, just what we needed, more pressure, said Naruto. This is the summer prom all over again. Taxi, yelled Annabeth as she spotted a Vegas taxi. Once the taxi driver spotted Annabeth, he pulled over to the curb and lowered the passenger side window. Where to? Asked the driver. Los Angeles, said Annabeth. Hold on missy, that's over 100 miles, said the cab driver, so unless you have the dough to back up the mileage, I'm leaving. Do you accept casino cash cards? Asked Percy. Some, but the chances of having one with the right amount of cash are 1,000,000 to 1, said the taxi driver. Just swipe it, said Naruto, life can surprise you. When he did swipe the card, the meter machine started to flash random numbers until it stopped on the infinity symbol. Well, looks like the boy was right, life is full of surprises, said the taxi driver, get in princess and other assorted royalty. Finally, a positive note in this quest, thought Naruto, now to ride this cab to our final destination and possible end this quest so I can get back to my business. The one word Naruto would use to describe the current situation would be boring. Riding in a taxi on what seems like hours may not have been the brightest idea, but they were running out of time. The ride did take a toll on the crew as Grover and Percy were asleep. Annabeth was looking out the window while Naruto was knitting. The driver did ask where they were from, but got mixed answers from Annabeth and Percy. He asked again, and Naruto was the one that answered. We're actually homeless, said Naruto. We heard that was an open shelter in Los Angeles. Wait, if you're homeless then how did you get that casino card? Replied Steve. Lady Luck happens to smile upon us, said Naruto. I've heard weirder things, said Steve. That was 2 hours ago, and things have been silent since then. Grover almost blew their cover when his fake feet came off, and he kept bawling in his sleep, but Annabeth managed to put his feet back on before the driver could notice and explained that Grover grew up around goats. He asked further about their past, and out of the remaining 3 Percy's was the one that didn't make sense. So let me get this straight, you were the son of a fisherman that worked on an oil site and was a part-time go-go dancer. You now spend your life looking for traces of your father, said Steve. That's the weirdest backstory I've ever heard, thought Annabeth. Idiot, thought Naruto. Enchiladas, thought Grover as he was still asleep. You have to forgive Percy, he has a problem remembering certain information, whispered Naruto to Steve. He's also a little shy. That would explain his story, replied Steve. That's why he travels with us, said Naruto. If left alone for an extended amount of time he could get in trouble with the law. You truly are kind people, said Steve. Thank you, said Naruto. It's not needed as the satisfaction of helping someone in trouble is enough. It was after that comment did Naruto decide to take a nap, missing the conversation Annabeth and Percy were going to have. Naruto's dreams usually consisted of a world bathed in darkness, and the only sight that greeted him were strings. This was a common dream for him, he never dreamed of large buildings or reading in a giant library. This was just another mystery that surrounded Naruto, even Chiron couldn't explain it. Naruto walked further into the dream saw the only other person in this dream, he didn't know her name, but having someone to talk to is nice. She had lavender hair that reached the nape of her neck, her pale skin, and her semi-shy personality really touch him as he was the same way in the past. She would seem normal until you see she has a spider-like legs, pitch black abdomen and the black shell that covered her arms. She was a descendant of the original Arachnid, and honestly, this didn't bother Naruto at all. Unlike his siblings, he wasn't bothered by spiders, in fact, he felt a sort of kinship with them. "Welcome back, Naruto," said the girl. "Good to see you too," said Naruto, "something is different about you, did you change your hair?" "Why yes I did," said the girl, "I trimmed my bangs." "Well they look nice," said Naruto, "are you ever going to tell me your name?" "That question will be answered in time," said the girl. When Naruto woke up and looked around, he saw the taxi was parked near a beach. "Why are we here?" said Naruto as he exited the taxi. "Back at the arch Percy was given a message from an aide," said Annabeth. "I can see that happening, but the better question would be, why here?" said Naruto, "We're at one of the polluted beaches in America. No Nereid in their right mind would be here, especially a Nereid that would come from Poseidon's court." "I agree with you there, but this was where the spirit wanted to meet," said Annabeth. "Did Percy tell you anything else?" asked Naruto. "Just don't trust the gift," said Annabeth. "That could mean anything," said Naruto. "I agree with you again," said Annabeth as she saw Percy walk into the sea. "Anybody hungry because it looks like this might take a while?" asked Naruto. "I could eat," said Annabeth. "It has been a few hours since we last," said Grover. "A hunting we shall go then," said Naruto. The search lasted for 5 minutes and the group of 3 found a suitable eating establishment. It was a Denny's, but it suited their needs. "So any ideas on what to expect when we get to the underworld?" said Naruto. "Besides the screams of tortured souls and the sight of everlasting darkness," said Grover. "Grover, trust me on this, the underworld isn't that bad at first," said Naruto. "How would you know that?" asked Annabeth. "Because I've been in the underworld before," said Naruto. "How?" asked Annabeth. "It was part of the contract I signed with Hermes," said Naruto, "since the gods can't enter each other's territories without permission, that's where I come in, I have permission to enter the underworld when I have a delivery to any of its inhabitants. That's why I disappear once or twice a month. We did talk about that issue a few weeks ago, and we just thought you were in love with one of the nymphs around the camp," said Annabeth. "That sounds more like a theory Aphrodite's cabin would think of," said Naruto. "One of her daughters loaned us some romance novels," said Annabeth. "Still an interesting clause in that contract," said Annabeth. "You're telling me," said Naruto as the food began to arrive, "I'm also surprised you guys would read romance novels for fun." "Surprised me too," said Annabeth. Their lunch lasted for half an hour, and after paying the bill, the 3 ventured back to the beach to meet Percy and continue their quest. "Percy, glad to see you're back," said Naruto as he looked at Percy. "What's with the pearls though? If you're going into the jewelry, then you're going to need more than 3. "No, these pearls were a gift from my father," said Percy. "Something tells me those pearls will only bring grief," thought Naruto. "So what do they do?" asked Grover. "I don't know," answered Percy. "Just remember this, Percy," said Annabeth, "no gift comes without a price." It seems to smile upon them as the group managed to find a bus station near the beach. Annabeth tried to convince Percy to tell her more information about his encounter with the Nereid, but Percy stood firmly by not answering her. "Hey, haven't I seen before?" asked the bus driver. No, you must be mistaken," said Percy. "Now I remember," said the bus driver, "you're the designer behind the Olympus collection." "I'm always glad to meet one of my fans," said Naruto. "I got to say, kid, you're definitely making a name for yourself," said the bus driver. "How do you do it?" "Let's just say I have friends in high places," said Naruto as he boarded the bus. "Must be some friends," said the bus driver as he closed the bus doors. "Nice use of the mist," whispered Percy. "That wasn't mist I used," said Naruto. "What, but how then?" said Percy. "I thought you only deal with the supernatural." "Percy, I do both mortal and immortal clothes," said Naruto. "The mortals really like my designs." Percy couldn't believe what he was hearing, that someone his age was famous and was well recognized. He should feel happy for his friend, but there was a little voice in head saying it wasn't fair. I mean, he was the son of Poseidon, one of the great 3, and he was still being ignored. "Percy, I know what you're thinking," said Naruto, "you're jealous of me, but you have only known me for a few days. It took years of hard work for me to get the reputation I now have, all the downfalls and death threats I received." "Death threats?" asked Percy. "My uncle is very unhappy with me," said Naruto. "I apparently deprive him time with his lady because she's always filling out order sheets." "Which uncle?" asked Percy. "My mother's brother," said Naruto. "Oh," said Percy. The bus ride went by quickly as people tended to keep to themselves. The group decided to shop near the shopping outlet and were greeted with the sight of street urchins and various other vagabonds. The four got off the bus and began the walk towards the entrance to the Underworld recording studio. As they walked, they felt the various stares from the viler citizens, checking to see if they were worth mugging, and the group only got 6 blocks from the bus stop when a gang decided to make their move. Well, what do we have here, said the leader, a couple of little brats, listen, give up your money and we'll let you pass unharmed. Naruto saw that Percy was reaching for his pen sword, idiotic move, but the kid's the noob, so Naruto decided to make the first move. With his hands behind his back and when the would-be thugs weren't looking, his fingers started to twitch. Boss, help, said one of the thugs as he attacked his own gang. I can't control my body. Chris, stop fooling around, yelled the boss, this isn't the time to fool around. I'm not fooling around, said Chris, help. Run, said Naruto. As soon as the command registered in their mind, the questing group ran further into the dark city. What just happened? Asked Percy as he ran. What you saw were the effects of my parasito technique, said Naruto. I basically took control of one of the thugs and made into my puppet. Neat, said Percy. I'm just glad you finally finished the technique, said Annabeth. Took a couple of rats, but I finally got it, said Naruto. How did you think of it? Asked Grover. I was bored, business was slow, and I was visiting Hephaestus's cabin to relieve the boredom. One of his daughters was whittling some wood, turns out she had an interest in puppetry. I offered to help and she said yes, we made various figurines, and I got curious. I thought since the human body is like a giant puppet, could it be controlled by an outside source? It took months of trial and error, but I managed to make my first breakthrough when I managed to navigate a rat through a maze. Why a rat though? Asked Percy. Pigs were too expensive, said Naruto. The group stopped to look around to see where they were and discovered they were at a water mattress store. Who's Krusty? Asked Percy. It's actually Krusty, said Naruto, you learn a few reading tricks after a couple of years. Should we go in? Asked Grover only to hear the sound of a group of gang members running towards them. I believe we should, said Naruto as he opened the door. The interior was what you would expect, various bed models spread across the room with their prices on the headboards. They journeyed further into the store to see if anyone was actually here, only to run into an abnormally tall man. Hello, how can I help you? Asked the man. We were interested in purchase one of your mattresses, said Naruto before Percy could reply, and just checking your prices. But well, my name is Krusty, and if you need any help don't hesitate to seek me out, said Krusty. Thank you, and we'll let you know if we need your help, said Naruto. Hey, how about I show you my most impressive bed, said Krusty. It has an excellent message feature, and the mattress's liquid viscosity practically makes a mold of the body. What about support? Asked Naruto. The bed has a remote that controls the amount of water in the mattress at any given time, said Krusty. Interesting feature, but what about the price? Asked Naruto. It's negotiable, said Krusty. Really, because waterbs are starting to become a rarity, said Naruto as he walked around the bed. That may be true, but water beds have shown to relieve the arthritis pain, and since they're filled with water, dust won't settle in, said Krusty. Those are some advantages, but tell this, why should we buy from a monster that tried to kill Theseus? Oh, I see you picked up on that, said Krusty, ergo. Jane sprang from the bed, latching onto Naruto's feet and wrists and dragging him onto the bed. Short, you're too short, said Krusty. Hear it, but that changes nothing, Procris, said Naruto. Oh, it will change, said Procris, and I will be the one to do it. The chains started to recede back into the bed, stretching Naruto and alerting the others to his position. Annabeth and Grover ran to where they heard the clanking of chains and found Naruto chained to a bed with Percy just standing there doing nothing. Percy, what happened? Asked Annabeth. He won't answer you, his mind is blanketed by the mist, said Naruto. So shock, said Grover. In layman's terms, yes, said Annabeth. Ah, more customers, said Procris, that means more beds. Ergo. James launched out of the other beds, dragging Annabeth and Grover towards the beds. Looks like it's all up to Percy, thought Naruto, great. Percy came back to his senses to see that 3 of his friends are chained to a bed and are in the process of getting stretched. Now to deal with you, said Procris. Wait. Said Percy, I'm different, I appreciate what you do. I mean, you do push the envelope on design, lava lamps in the headboards are genius. Thank you, said Procris, everyone just overlooks the effort I put into running this business. I spend good money on getting the best products for the customer, but do they notice? No. I feel your pain, but I do have a quick question, what would you do if the customer is too tall for the bed? I just trim them until they fit, said Procris as he retrieved a bronze axe. Interesting, said Percy, but what if they squirm and the bed starts jiggling? That's simple, all the beds have dynamic stabilizers that prevent the bed from making too many waves, said Procris, guaranteed. I don't believe you, said Percy, I used to have a water but it kept making waves and I couldn't sleep. I promise you that won't happen, said Procrus, I'll even show you. Procrus showed Percy one of the luxurious bed and laid on it. See no waves, said Procrus. I see, and I admit you're right, said Percy, but what about when they're struggling, ergo? The bed sprouted from the bed said secured Procrus to the bed. Wait. Listen, if you let me go I'll throw in 3 sheets and 2 beds, said Procrus. Sorry, no sale, said Percy as he uncapped Riptide. Okay, how about 30% off on anything in the store and free shipping, said Procrus. Nope, sorry to say but you've been put in the clearance bin, said he, and Percy bisected Procrus. With him gone, the ropes that were holding Annabeth, Grover and Naruto hostage loosened, allowing the 3 to go free. You've been put in the clearance bin, that said Naruto, that's the best you could think of. Give him some slack, said Grover, it takes a while for a person to come up with good one-liners. Alright fine, said Naruto, let's just get out and get to the studio. But we don't have the address, said Percy. I do, said Naruto, I go there on a regular basis. Oh, said Percy as he joined the rest of his group. The Doa studio is the current entry point to the underworld, there are others, but this is the only publicly known, and this is where the group found themselves. I hate to say this, but this is where we go our separate ways, said Naruto. What? Why? Asked Percy. The usual way I go will only work for me, said Naruto, so unless you can fit into a package you're on your own. Can't you just flatten and fold us? Said Grover. I can't, said Naruto, my powers only work on inorganic and some organic materials, people not being one of them. I wish I could do more, but I can't. Naruto started to walk towards the door and entered the building to be greeted by the usual sight of spirits waiting their turn for the underworld. Hello Charon, I see you're still driving Hades into bankruptcy, said Naruto. Hey, the best things in life cost money, said Charon as he read his magazine, you would know. That may be true, but some people would think otherwise. Said Naruto, I didn't come here to discuss this issue with you, I'm just here to deliver a package. Is it that time again? Said Charon, what is it this time? The party dress, said Naruto, I think she's planning something for her husband. You never know with her, said Charon, you are free to pass. Thanks, said Naruto as he walked past the desk, you really need to lay off the Italian food, you're starting to develop a gut. And eat the vegan food that's served around here, said Charon, I think not. The elevator ride was always interesting as it gave the impression that you were going down when you're actually going forward. After riding it for a couple months of riding it, Naruto got used to it and didn't get nauseous anymore. I really need to update that elevator, said Naruto as he walked towards the entrance. The gates of the underworld never look the same as people pictured differently, to Naruto it looked like the entrance to the prison. High barbed wire fences and the various Furies looked out from the view towers seemed unnerving, but to Naruto, it seemed normal as some of the Furies were his clients. Hi, Jill, said Naruto as he greeted one of the main guards, how's business? It's going well, said Jill, a prison bus went over a ravine, 23 new souls at once. Great, said Naruto, I have a package for Persephone. Unfortunately she isn't here at the moment, said Jill, you can leave it with Lord Hades. That sounds alright, said Naruto, I just need Hades or Melino to sign for it. That sounds alright, said Jill, I'm sure you know the way. Yes, said Naruto as he walked further into the underworld, have a nice day, oh and tell Melino I am not making a giant sweater for Cerberus. The journey through the underworld was a spectacle itself as the various torture methods were displayed on for the newly deceased to see. There were the classics, Iron Maiden and the rack, to the more creative ones such as being skinned alive or possibly the worst, doing Hades taxes. Naruto was used to this side as 30% of his business was down here. I wonder if they installed the area where the masochists go. Thought Naruto as he got closer to the palace, that, and they really need to gate the entrance to Tartarus off. As he got closer, Naruto could make out some of the palace features, the obsidian walls, the gothic designs and the completely decayed shoulders that stand guard. Urchimai fere inadorogia kini pu ferne talalaudia, said Naruto to the guards. Lipozo kyrios nor e afto tadoro, replied one of the guards. Zere tis episkepsis mu kai perimene ta doramu, said Naruto. Oriite na isaji kai na chiredison tun kyrio, said the guard while opening the door. CF Chiristo, said Naruto. I swear Hades make them speak Greek to all his visitors, thought Naruto. The interior definitely didn't match the exterior as yes there were pictures of deaths on the wall, but with the various base flowers in the hallway just ruined the atmosphere. Persephone definitely left her feminine touch on the palace, thought Naruto, looks like I'm here. The door that stood in his way was massive and was decorated with 2 giant skeletons acting as guards for the door. Well, here it goes as Naruto went through the smaller door that was beside the giant door, for some reason people don't seem to use this door that often. The throne room was massive and decorated with obsidian walls, stalagmite hanging overhead, and a raised stone platform with 2 thrones in the middle. On one of the thrones sat Lord Hades, the lord of the underworld, wearing his crown of woven gold and donning his robe of trapped souls. "I trust the journey wasn't difficult for you," said Hades. "A few bumps but nothing major," said Naruto. "If you could just shrink down and sign this, I'll be on my way." "Straight to business," said Hades, "just as I suspected, but something tells me you'll be stuck here for a while." "Melino is here, isn't she?" said Naruto. "Naruto. You've finally made it," said Melino as she hugged Naruto. "Hello Melino," said Naruto, "always nice to see you." Melino, the daughter of Hades and Persephone, was a mystery. To most people she would seem cold and distant, while to others she was cheerful and happy. Her behavior can be explained by looking into her domain and the various purification methods mortals have developed to ward off her minions. Since more of her minions were being converted and going to the asphodel fields, she has more time to herself and her paperwork decreased as well. Because of this her once frazzled hair was now smooth and luscious, her wardrobe changed from being completely black to still having black but with some purple and gold thrown in. She met Naruto when she was reading a few fashion magazines and saw an article about one of his collections, The Wonders of the Sea. This interested Melino as the idea of a child demigod making it big in the fashion industry seemed suspicious at best, so she investigated further. She put in a simple order for a black evening gown to see just how good he was and was surprised by the workmanship of the dress. The fabric was soft and light on the skin while still being durable. This just made her more curious about this demigod, so she did the unthinkable, she left the underworld. The journey to Camp Half-Blood wasn't that difficult either as she, like any other godly figure, could be everywhere at once. Once she got to the camp, she spotted the designer and observed him as he went through his day. She noticed that while the other campers were having fun and socializing with each other, Naruto kept to himself and stayed in his shop. This was something she was familiar with as people mistake her for Hikate or completely forget about her. This was the moment she fell in love with him as Naruto knew what true loneliness was like and could comfort her when things were at their worst. She later returned to the underworld. She immediately put in another order and to this day the trend continued until she had 26 evening gowns, 10 night gowns, and 6 scarves. "How's my little designer doing?" asked Melian. "Melino, we've been over this," said Naruto, "just call me by my name and not by one of your pet names." "Aw, but I like calling you by your pet names," said Melino. Before Naruto could continue the doors opened up and allowed Percy, Annabeth, and Grover to enter. "I see you found a way to enter," said Naruto. "How was it?" "Fine, but we may have caused a slight delay at the entrance," said Percy. "I sure it was sorted it out." "Define delay?" asked Naruto. "Cerberus sat on some of the souls," said Percy, and his response was seeing Naruto facepalm. "Percy, you just gave the Furies in Hades at least an hour's worth of paperwork," said Naruto, "not the greatest impression can make." "I agree with Naruto," said Hades, "what brings you here, son of Poseidon?" "We come to retrieve the missing bolt," said Percy, missing Naruto facepalm again. "Are you accusing me of stealing the bolt?" said Hades. "Percy, shut up," said Naruto. "You're the only one that makes sense," said Percy, "your kingdom would grow as the war goes on." "And now his grave has been dug," thought Naruto. "You dare accuse me of stealing when you're only going on a hunch," said Hades. "Have you seen the condition of the underworld, having to open new fields, paying the employees overtime?" "By the way, I promised Charon I could get a raise," said Percy. "Don't get me started on Charon," said Hades. "Ever since he found Italian clothing he's been asking for a raise constantly. So no, I don't want my kingdom to expand, and how dare you accuse me of stealing my brother's bolt when it's with you?" "What? We don't have the bolt," said Percy. "Then what is in your bag?" said Hades. "Nah," said Percy, only to see a large cylindrical tube in the bag. "Isn't that the bag Ares gave us?" thought Naruto. "Wait, this is a mistake," said Percy, only have various weapons pointed at him. "A mistake," said Hades. "I don't make mistakes, you came with the bolt to bargain for her life." As he spoke, Percy's mother appeared encased in a clear yellow cocoon. "She is still alive, so return my helm," said Hades, "or I'll stop death and your skeleton will lead the army." "Lord Hades, if I may comment," said Naruto, "I think Percy might be a disposable pawn." "Why do you defend the thief?" said Hades. "Because he makes the perfect suspect," said Naruto. "With you, 3 occupied and the possibility of a giant war, who do you would benefit?" "Ares, but why?" said Annabeth. "For power, but not for him," said Naruto. "Something bigger is happening and I think I might know the orchestrator." "Then who?" asked Melino. "Chronos, he's making an escape plan," said Naruto. "The gates of Tartarus would be open as there would be no one to guarding it. He could escape and exact his revenge." "But a bold accusation to make," said Hades, "especially with no proof." It seems to Covenant that two of the most powerful weapons would go missing, said Naruto, and I think Ares is just a puppet that your father is using to start the war. If you record us when we meet Ares, you'll find why I have my suspicions. You have served the gods dutifully for years, not to mention my wife Happy, so I'll grant your request, but know this, if you're wrong, Ares is going to send you back to me," said Hades. "I'm willing to take my chances," said Naruto. "Sorry about the rough ride, but I have to make it look realistic," said Hades as Naruto, Percy, Annabeth, and Grover were enveloped in a green light and expunged from the underworld. "Father, there was something I wanted to ask," said Melano. On the coast of the Los Angeles beach, a single lifeguard patrolled the area for any abnormalities. Normal days he would find nothing, but on this day he saw the bodies of 4 children on the coast. He panicked momentarily only to calm down when they started to get up. "What happened to you?" asked the lifeguard. "We just fell off a boat, our parents should be near the coast by now," said Naruto. "Alright, you 4 stay here, I looked for your parents," said the lifeguard as he ran further down the coast. "Why did you say that?" asked Percy. "Conventions," said Naruto, "but we have bigger problems." Percy looked where Naruto's was looking and saw Ares resting on his bike. "Hello Ares," said Naruto, "fancy meeting you here." "I see corpse breathe didn't do his job," said Ares, "you were supposed to stay there." "Not all plans come together," said Naruto, "one of the first lessons for Athena's children, but something tells me your plans aren't that well thought out." You stole the bolt in Hades' helm," said Percy. "Well, not me personally, but yeah, I orchestrated with the whole thing," said Ares. "No, because for one thing, you're not the real Ares," said Naruto. "You dare accuse me of impersonation," said Ares. "Yes, because your vocabulary and planning skills are too advanced for the real Ares," said Naruto. "His plans mostly consist of overwhelming the enemy with force, not cloak and dagger." "You're really becoming a thorn in my side, son of Athena," said Ares, "and today that's going to change." "Unfortunately you can't," said Naruto, "by the ancient laws you can't harm us without repercussions." "Luckily I have a challenger," said Ares. "What do you?" said Naruto only to realize what he meant. "Percy." "Ares?" yelled Percy as he charged Ares. "Well, that looks like a challenge to me," said Ares. "That idiot," thought Naruto as he put on some gloves and ran to assist Percy. While Ares was fighting Percy, Naruto was directed at Percy's movements so he would last longer in the fight, but Ares managed to knock Percy out of the fight earlier than expected. "If that was your secret weapon, then the Chiron really needs to step up his game," said Ares. "Congratulations, you managed to defeat a demigod that received less than a week's worth of training," said Naruto. He just got over his head and allowed himself to be influenced by anger. "True, but you're no better," said Ares, "a weaver not a fighter." "That's where you're wrong," said Naruto as he removed his gloves and took out a roll of paper, "because I'm about to show you why I was banned from Capture the Flag." "Big words coming from a reject," said Ares, "and I see you decided to bring out the big guns." "Remain calm, he's just trying to goad you," thought Naruto as the paper unrolled and hardened to reveal his father's prized sword, Nabari, a long sword in the shape of a sewing needle. "What can I say?" said Naruto, "only the best for the god of war." Naruto was the one that started the fight by attacking with a lunging thrust and a few experimental slices. Ares blocked these easily with his sword, and this pattern continued for a good 5 minutes, with the occasional slice from Ares. "Just quit," said Ares, "you're only tiring yourself out, and with the way things are going are doomed anyway." "He's right, but I still have one more trick up my sleeve," thought Naruto. "I may be tired, but you'll find out that I'm full of surprises," said Naruto. "Like what?" asked Ares. "Like this," said Naruto. Hermes. Angelioforos Tuntheon, messenger of the gods. Agios Nullists, saint to bandits. Bakaustin Kleisi mu kai nakane tun cosmo mu pragmaticatita, hear my call and make my world a reality. Diafto kai bore na padixe tau sechstras mu, so I may smite my enemies. Lexi Marmro, word marble. As Naruto was chanting, a large circle of energy started to surround both Naruto and Ares. "What sorcery is this?" said Ares. "This Ares is the benefit I get to being the tailor to the gods," said Naruto as a dome started to form over them. The sight that greeted Ares was inky blackness with random lights illuminating various strings that spanned the span of the dome. "Welcome to my world," said Naruto as he stood on one of the strings, but his appearance changed. All over his were what looked to be stitches, from 2 lines on his face to the multiple lines on his hands. "Like my new look," said Naruto as he walked along the string, "this is an unforeseen feature that I pay when I use this ability. Including the loss of my powers for 24 hours. Thought Naruto. "Looks don't matter to me, kid, but your skill facing a god," said Ares. "That is where you're wrong," said Naruto as he flexed his fingers, catching Ares in mid-strike. "Well, you're in this dome, you're at my mercy." "This power shouldn't belong to a demigod," said Ares as he struggled against the strings. That may be true, but isn't this what you always wanted, said Naruto as he tossed Ares, to face an opponent that an overwhelming ability, having to push past your limitations. Ares replied by laughing, you got me there kid, but let's see how long this ability of yours lasts. Ares materialized a sword and charged as Naruto again, only to be attacked by the various strings that surround them. The odd thing was Ares was smiling throughout the match, for eons all of his opponents started to become predictable or were overcome by his aura, but now he's fighting someone that pulled a powerful skill against his, making his blood pump. The two continues to dance for a few minutes, Naruto surprising Ares by undoing the stitches on his body, allowing his body to fall apart and then reassemble somewhere else. The downside of this ability is the strain of maintaining the dome, and fighting Ares started to take its toll on Naruto's body as his vision started to get blurring, he started to sweat heavily, and the final strike was what did Naruto in as his concentration broke, throwing Naruto back on the beach with Annabeth, Grover, and Percy. Your friend definitely gave me a workout, but the war is still going to happen, said Ares. Ares? Shouted Percy as he charged towards Ares. While Ares and Percy were fighting, Annabeth and Grover were tending to Naruto's wounds, but in the back of Annabeth's mind, she was wondering how powerful her brother was. Out of all of her siblings, Naruto was the most mysterious, she knew little to nothing about him. All she knows about him was the fact he owned a business and has a pet owl named Fluffy. She would visit him from time to time, but on those visits, he was always working on something or was checking his inventory. At most they spent at most an hour with each other during lunch. Sure, she would love to get to know Naruto more, but with camp responsibility and looking after her cabin, that doesn't leave her with a lot of time. When she does have some spare time, she'll usually volunteer to be a model for some of the dresses he was making, but the conversation usually died as Naruto was concentrating on the dress. Annabeth's thought process stopped when she heard Ares scream and seeing the god bleed for the first time. Know this demigod, from this day forward whenever you raise your sword in battle it will fool you, said Ares as he began to glow. Look away. Yelled Annabeth. After Ares was gone, Percy walked back to the group and assessed their next movement. So now what? Asked Percy. Return the helm and bolt, answered Annabeth. No, we only need to focus on the bolt as the Furies will handle the helm, said Naruto. So, how are we going to get to New York? Asked Percy. From them, said Naruto as he pointed towards the reporters that started to gather. Percy managed to guilt the reporters into giving them money to purchase plane tickets, but they could only afford 3. Naruto insisted they take the tickets. When asked how he will return, all they got as a reply was him using one of his other benefits. The four did travel by bus together, but Naruto stepped off when they neared a private airfield. That's when Annabeth realized how Naruto was getting back on a private jet. This both depressed and angered Annabeth as they could have used his jet to get to California faster, only to remember that Percy was with them and they four couldn't fly. She still pouted thou. It took the group of 3-4 hours to get through security and to board the plane, while it took Naruto 20 minutes to get through security to board the jet. Some aspects of being a demigod aren't so bad, said Naruto as he sat in his leather chairs sipping on Dr. Pepper and watching a movie on Netflix. The real reason Hermes doesn't go to the underworld. Hermes, the messenger of the gods and patron saint to anyone that uses the road, has many jobs, but the one he dreads the most is delivering mail to Hades. He doesn't have any problems with Hades, it's just the route. Hermes was making his way through the long and dangerous route when he ran into one of his worst enemies, dogs. He tried to quietly sneak past Cerberus only to pause when the middle head started to sniff the air. That's when he decided to run. As Hermes ran, the various hellhounds that surround the underworld decided to join Cerberus in chasing the godly mailman, and by the time Hermes did reach the palace, over 30 canines were chasing him. After Hermes delivered Hades' mail, he turned around and saw the various beasts that seemed to hate him. I really hate dogs. Once Naruto got off his plane, he began the journey to the airport to meet the rest of his group. Since their flight won't land for another hour and a half, this gave Naruto time to think. As he was sipping his cappuccino, Naruto thought about the first time he was in Olympus. As he was sipping his coffee, he remembered the first time he entered Olympus. It was 2 years ago, when Chiron decided to bring some of the more experienced campers to the home of the gods, and Naruto was excited. This would give him the opportunity to see the fashion in Olympus. His clothing business was still being developed, and his knowledge of fashion was a novice at best. He saw the way the nymphs would wear their clothing and saw that most of their clothing were organic, made out of leaves and bark. The style was a mix of old Greek togas and modern fashion. As they got closer to the palace, that when things began to go downhill. News spreads fast on the mountain, so when one of the nymphs spotted Naruto, she told her friend, and that friend told another friend. Long story short, a mob began to form, and their target was Naruto. Naruto started to suspect something when he saw a group of nymphs and handmaidens walking behind their group starting to grow to a dangerous level. It took the combined effort of Chiron and various campers to keep the Naruto from being ravaged by the various nymphs and Aphrodite's handmaidens. The aftermath was surprising as the demigods won by a thin margin, and this surprised both Chiron and the gods. Zeus saw the aftermath and decided for the good of Olympus Naruto would no longer be welcomed on Olympus. This decision was met with some resistance, mostly for Aphrodite, but was silenced after voting on it. Back to the present, Naruto was almost done with his drink when he sensed a familiar presence near him. "Always nice to see you, mother," said Naruto without turning. "Well, I wanted to be the first to congratulate you on your first quest," said the mother. "Thanks, Hestia," said Naruto. "Athena would probably criticize me on what I could have done better." "Don't be so hard on her, I'm sure she has her reasons," said Hestia. "She berated my lifestyle and basically kicked me out of the cabin," said Naruto. After saying that comment, Naruto and Hestia stayed quiet until Hestia decided to change the topic to something more pleasant, such as his business. The two talked for an additional 30 minutes until the flight coming from Los Angeles started to get off. "Well, here comes the rest of my group," said Naruto. "Always nice to talk to you, Hestia." "Anytime," said Hestia as she began to disappear. "What a nice woman," thought Naruto. "That was horrible," said Percy as he entered the common area. "You are the son of the sea, so your uncle wouldn't make it easy," said Annabeth. "So how the flight?" asked Naruto. "Horrible, our flight was delayed, we weren't seated together, there were 5 crying babies, and I got kicked in the back of the seat by an obnoxious brat," said Percy. "Wow, that sounds bad," said Naruto. "Well, my flight went well and can't wait to get to Olympus." "You have a private jet and get to fly in the lap of luxury, well, we had to ride on a crowded airplane," said an irritated Annabeth. "You have no room to comment, especially when you weren't sandwiched between 2 fat guys." "He has a private jet," thought Percy. "To Olympus," said Grover, trying to defuse the situation. The trip to the Empire State Building was interesting as they had to wait a couple of minutes to get a taxi that could accommodate all 4 of them. When they did got the group decided the sitting order, Naruto getting shotgun while the rest of the group would sit in the back. Naruto could hear his group complaining in the back, mostly concerning the legroom and music that was playing on the radio. When they finally did get to their destination, Naruto decided to give the 3 another nod in their quest. "Well, good luck," said Naruto. "You sound like you're not coming with us," said Percy, not knowing the news beforehand. "I'm not," said Naruto. "By the gods' decree I am not to set foot on Olympus." "Why?" asked Naruto. "Ask Annabeth," said Naruto, "she was there when it happened." "I'll tell you after we're done with this quest," said Annabeth. Naruto was waiting in the lobby. He was wondering how his shop was doing, for all he knows it was still being guarded by Aphrodite's cabin. He checked to see if he had a drachma for Iris to deliver his message to camp, he found one, then proceeded to go outside. He walked to one of the surrounding alleyways and spotted a good beam of light. "Perfect," said Naruto as he clapped his hands and opened them, revealing 5 stings between them. With a quick series of hand gestures, the open space in front of Naruto was covered with string, and the sunlight managed to catch it just right to produce a rainbow on the wall just to the right of him. "Triangular string, works every time," said Naruto as he took out the drachma. "Oh goddess Iris, hear my call, deliver this message to Chiron of Camp Half-Blood," said Naruto as he flipped the coin into the rainbow. Instead of bouncing off the wall, the coin disappeared into the rainbow, it then starts to warp and form a screen. Static appeared before a picture of Chiron appeared. "Chiron, can you hear me?" said Naruto. "Yeah, I can hear you," said Chiron when he noticed the screen. "How's the quest going?" "We managed to deliver the bolt back to Olympus, and I am currently waiting for them to return," said Naruto. "How's the camp doing?" "Good, we managed to settle the arguments around the camp and prevent an all-out war between the cabins," said Chiron. "What about my shop?" said Naruto. "I managed to convince Aphrodite's daughter to disassemble the fort, but they still have a guard post near it." "Well, I guess that's better than nothing," said Naruto. "We plan to return to the camp in the couple days for preparation for us to arrive." "Will do," said Chiron as they ended the message. "Hopefully nothing else goes," said Naruto. As Naruto was walking out of the alley, he Percy, Annabeth and Grover waiting on the curb. "So was Olympus?" asked Naruto. "It was interesting," said Percy. "You'll get used to it in time," said Naruto. "So did you get to meet your dad?" "Yeah, we had a few minutes together," said Percy. "You'll have more of those moments in the future, I can guarantee it," said Naruto, "and it looks like our ride is here." The group looked to where Naruto was pointing and saw Argus with the camp minivan. The ride back to camp went smooth and also gave the group time to think and reflect about the quest. Grover saw what the world really looked like, Annabeth saw some of the famous monuments, Percy saw the dangers of the mythical world, while Naruto saw how his fighting style worked against a stronger opponent. It seems that Naruto's style was leaning towards outsmarting and keeping his opponent at a distance. It wasn't perfect, but it worked for him. He didn't train much as he had a business to run and operate, so on the slow days he would train as much as possible, which were rare at best. After 20 minutes the group of 5 reached the border of the camp. I wonder how many orders I have now, thought Naruto as he walked over the hill, with my luck it would be over 50. As they walked over the hill the group was greeted by some of the other campers, congratulating them on completing the quest, Percy being jealous of Naruto as he was hugged by Aphrodite's daughters. As the successful group continued walking into camp, they found that they were being driven towards the fire pit and saw that 3 blankets folded nearby. "Why are there blankets with our names on them?" asked Percy. "Those aren't blankets, they're your shrouds," said Doug, a child of Apollo. "Shrouds?" yelled Percy. "We're the first group in years to complete a quest," said Naruto. "Death shrouds are usually made in advance in case they die." "Who makes them?" asked Percy. "Usually I would, but in the case I am busy or sick some of your cabin mates would make it," said Naruto. "I wonder who made mine." The sight that greeted Naruto could be described in one word: weird. Battle towers and barbed wire fences were surrounding his shop and Naruto knew who placed them there, the pink hearts and doves gave it away. "What the?" said Naruto. "I thought they took everything down." "We tried our best, but we had to compromise," said Chiron as he walked towards Naruto. "They did get rid of the stone wall, spear guns, and flamethrowers." "Should we be afraid?" asked Naruto. "Yes, we should," said Chiron. Naruto resumed to walk to his shop and getting around the barbed fence and opened the door to be greeted by another surprising sight. Melino was sitting at a desk, which wasn't there before, sorting through his orders and answering the phone, another thing that wasn't there before. "Hello sweetie," said Melino. "Hello Melino," said Naruto as he put down his bag. "Question, why are you here and not the underworld?" "I asked my father if I can explore the mortal world, so I become your assistant," said Melino. "And he just agreed," said Naruto, "without any attachments or conditions." "Well there was a discount and possible marriage," said Melino as she looked at the orders. "Is that all?" asked Naruto as he gave Fluffy a treat. "Nope," said Melino, "nothing else, but isn't great now we can finally be together and really get to know each other." As she hugged Naruto. "Yeah," said a less than enthusiastic Naruto. The two talked until it was time for the campfire to further celebrate their accomplishment and burn the shrouds. "Today we are here to celebrate the accomplishment of Percy, Annabeth, Grover, and Naruto," said Chiron. "Glory to them for preventing a war." "The glory!" yelled the other campers. The burning was beautiful as the shrouds illustrated the various events that took place in their lives, except for Percy's, as his shroud consisted of a red smiley face with the eyes crossed out. "I hate Ares's cabin," thought Percy as he watched the shroud burn. "Also, Melino, goddess of ghosts, will be staying with us," said Chiron. "She will be staying with Naruto, acting as his secretary and organizer." But those announcements, out of the way the usual festivities continued, Apollo's children singing and Ars children retelling stories of triumph. This went on into the night. Hephaestus's cabin put on a spectacular fireworks show depicting several ancestors including George Washington and Steve Jobs. While everyone was enjoying the fireworks Naruto managed to sneak away back to his shop only to encounter Melino. "Where do you think you're going?" said Melino. "To comfort my pets," said a nervous Naruto. "They're easy spooked." "They look fine to me," said Melino as she looked over towards a sleeping Fluffy and Stilio. "Are you trying to avoid me?" "And oh, what would give you that idea?" said Naruto. "You sneaking away and secluding yourself in the shop," replied Melino. "Alright you got me," said Naruto. "I was trying to escape, but it wasn't because of you. My social life can be described as non-existent and my own cabin barely tolerates me." "I know, but that's the other reason," said Melino, "is to get you out of your shell." "And stake my claim on you," whispered Melino. "What was that the last part?" asked Naruto. "Nothing," said Melino, now con on their making s'mores. As Naruto was being dragged towards the center of camp, Percy was being dragged towards the forest by Luke. "So, what do you think of camp?" asked Luke as he handed Percy a soda. "Fine for the most part," said Percy. "Percy, do you think God appreciate us?" said Luke. "They drop us off at this camp but never get to see them again." "Well I'm sure they're busy with managing their domain," said Percy. "No I don't think that's the case," said Luke. "If they were so busy, they wouldn't have demigod children. They don't love us and they don't care about us so if anything we're just mistakes." As he crushed his empty soda can and threw it on the ground. This was bad as the nymph would consider this an insult and take their revenge on them by filling their bed with soil and insects or something even worse. "What are you talking about?" said Percy. "The gods are getting weaker as the monsters get stronger and after so now they want us to defend them. They give us nothing and they expect us to defend them," said Luke. "That's why I'm leaving and gather an army to tear Olympus apart brick by brick." "What? You're crazy," shouted Percy. "No Percy I'm not and you will tell no one of this conversation," said Luke, and to make sure you don't I left you a present. Percy felt something crawling up his leg and saw it was a black scorpion. He didn't know what to do so he stayed still. One sting is all it takes to kill you, said Luke as he began to walk away. Goodbye Percy, and hope we don't see each other on the battlefield. As Luke was getting further away the scorpion was getting closer, so Percy tried to grab the pen in his pocket and possibly slay the monster arachnid, but when he jerked his leg to get the creature airborne, it managed to nick him on the hand. As the monster was disintegrated, Percy managed to get up off the group, but the venom started to take effect making him delirious and woozy. Percy's last conscious thought was getting help from the camp only to see blackness. Percy later woke up in the camp's infirmary surrounded by Annabeth, Naruto, Grover and Chiron. What happened? Asked Chiron. Luke left and is planning to destroy Olympus, said Percy. Are you sure? Asked Annabeth, maybe you misheard. No, I'm positive, said Percy. Well then it seems we have an enemy to look for. Said Naruto, and this one knows vital information about us. But he's one of us, said Percy. Not anymore, he chooses to fight against us so we will do the same, said Naruto, we are now at war. What if Naruto is the son of Athena Olympus? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.